Things I go brutal now. Dog I go down, dog. Things I go brutal. Down in a Babylon, yeah. Things I go crucial now. Load, crucial, yeah. Crucial, yeah.
In Dominica and Eastern Caribbean, the afternoon time is 3 p.m.
Work for shortage and masturbation. Man hurted to destruction. Send me up a warrior. I go brutal.
Down in a Babylon, yeah. Things I go crucial now.
So much crime and
Violence. Things I go crucial. Down in a Babylon, yeah. Things I go crucial now. Crucial, yeah.
Oh, crucial, yeah.
Sweet country sounds of my brother Nasio Fontaine. How are you doing out there in Warner? Good afternoon, sir. How are you doing? Hope everything is okay. Helen, good afternoon to you. Good afternoon, Dominica. Nice to be here. Between you and me, this is not really Between You and Me. It's just the original host of Between You and Me doing a Between You and Me style this afternoon on the big question of no reform and no election in Dominica. Yeah, we have a lot to talk about.
Been on a praying for things to get better. But Rasta know it a gonna get worse. And so much worse. Signs of third times are getting nearer. And this my justice getting nearer. Here every day. Things are go crucial. Down in a Babylon, yeah. Things are go crucial now. Dog I go down, dog. Things are go crucial. Down in a Babylon, yeah. Things are go crucial now. Lord, crucial, yeah. Lord, crucial, yeah. Things are go crucial. So much crime and violence. Things are go crucial. So much disease and a pestilence. Things are go crucial. Gonna get worse before it gets better. Things that get tougher. Been on a praying for things to get better. But Rasta know it a gonna get worse. And so much worse. Signs of third times are getting nearer. And this my justice getting nearer. Here every day. Things are go crucial. Down in a Babylon, yeah. Things are go crucial now. Dog I go down, dog. Things are go crucial. Down in a Babylon, yeah. Things are go crucial now. Lord, crucial, yeah. Lord, crucial, yeah. Things are go crucial. So much crime and violence. Things are go crucial. So much disease and a pestilence. Things are go crucial. Gonna get worse before it gets better. Things are go brutal.
3:04 is the afternoon time. Share the live. Share the live. We are here with you on Q95. This is a special Sunday afternoon program. You were the original host of Between You and Me, doing it in a style that we used to know very well. And I'm happy to welcome you warmly from wherever you are. And a little bit of music as you share the live. Share the live. Tell people we are there. And we have some very important matters of state to talk about. Our nation is in crisis. And we have said collectively, no reform, no election. That's to the Prime Minister's call of an election on the 6th of December. Our contention is that this is not Dominica's election. This is one man's election, called for his convenience and nothing to do with the interests of the state. And so we should leave it alone. We'll talk about that this afternoon.
My family think I'm insane, cause I don't like to travel by plane. So the travel
Share the live.
Last month, I booked a trip on the waterfront. But after purchasing my ticket and doing everything requisite, time to go on board for the trip. Up to now, I can't find the ship. I walk the whole of the waterfront in Tongue Bay. I can't find no ship to lead me out of Port of Spain. I check the dockyard like Marianne all day, all night. I even tried Chavaramas, the ship not inside. I see the scholarship, I see the sponsorship, I see the dealership, I see the ownership, I find the membership, some underhand relationships, all around the partnership, but I can't find the leadership. I see the dictatorship, but I can't find the leadership. I come just like Lord Kitchener when it comes to travel partner. Everybody know that Kitchi only like to travel by sea. And when he arrived in Miami, he taking train to New York City. But your boy in real jeopardy. I can't find a good ship to carry me. You see, I walk the whole of the waterfront in Tongue Bay. I can't find no ship to lead me out of Port of Spain. I check the dockyard like Marianne all day, all night. From Sangre Grande to see just the ship not inside. I see the mentorship, I see the apprenticeship, I see the penmanship, I see the companionship, I find the impostership, right next to the censorship, protecting the partnership, but I can't find the leadership. Plenty indentureship, but I can't find the leadership. Trouble wolves.
Trouble Wolves. The Pink Panther.
Well, boy, to travel long ago, we used to sail on the Gulf Beetle. The boat was so big and heavy, you could hide and stow away. And every weekend from Trinidad, a ship used to leave for Leningrad. But now you can't find no ship at sea, and the partnership is leaking badly. You see, I walk the whole of the waterfront in Tongue Bay. I can't find no ship to lead me out of Port of Spain. I check the dockyard like Marianne all day, all night. I even tried some point Lisa's the ship not inside. I see the Raja ship, I see the receiver ship, I see the Brinkman ship, I see Bad Workman ship, I see the Batisa ship, right next to the speaker ship, protecting the partnership, but I can't find the leadership. I see the Calcutta ship, but I can't find the leadership. What is this?
A very good afternoon, Dominica. All of the brothers and sisters of this blessed land joining us from at home and abroad. Those of you here in Dominica, those of you who are in the Caribbean islands, and those joining us from further afield via the wonderful technology of the internet. Joe and honor to be with you always. In the studios with me at this hour, Johnson Boston, the president of Dominica Freedom Party. Good afternoon, sir. How are you doing?
Well, Leonard, good afternoon to you, leader of the opposition.
Yes, sir.
Leader of the opposition. Very nice to be in studio with you this afternoon and to talk to our people at home and abroad and to the world in general. We're here.
All right, thanks. Nice to be with you. And what we're going to do this afternoon is I'm going to make a few observations about where we are, and we'll have a nice general discussion as we roll it along this afternoon. I wanted to start with some observations about where we are with elections in Dominica, because in 2014, the Commonwealth Observer Mission concluded that the general election in Dominica was free, but it was not necessarily fair because of multiple instances of cheating and bribery, including the transportation of electors to the island to vote and the apparent abuses of incumbency, including a lack of impartiality in the provision of public services. So at that point, it was clear to all of us, and to many of us much longer a time before that, that free and fair elections with integrity in Dominica had found itself on a very slippery slope. And urgent reforms were needed of the electoral process to make it fit for the purpose of free and fair elections. In fact, since 2008, the Independent Electoral Commission gave the people of Dominica a commitment that it would clean the voters list and it would issue ID cards for voting. And no sooner had the Electoral Commission done that, what we saw was the emergence of a plan from within the Skerrit cabal, you could call it that, to derail the reform process within the Electoral Commission. And advisors to the Prime Minister were talking about his re-election legacy and re-registration of voters and issuing of ID cards damaging his re-election legacy. And so the Prime Minister and his associates embarked on a plan to derail electoral reform from since after that decision of 2008. So in 2009, we had no reform for the 2009 election. We had no reform for the 2014 election. And when we came to 2019, where it was becoming clear that the people of Dominica needed these reforms and they were demanding them, the Prime Minister called in the OAS, the Commonwealth, and CARICOM, the election experts in those groups, to form a joint mission, come to Dominica, look at what was happening and advise on what could be done with the process before the 2019 election, before the election we had in 2019. The mission came in from the three august bodies. They did their work. They made recommendations on reforms that should take place before the election of 2019. And the Prime Minister refused to accept the recommendations. He set them aside and went into another election without reforms. Now, Although the reforms that the people have been demanding up until that point never materialized, there were widespread protests, and there were a number of solution-oriented civil society interventions. And the people hoped and prayed for significant improvement in the management of the electoral process, guided by the principles of integrity, transparency, accuracy, accountability, and efficiency. The people stood firm on their right to free and fair election by secret ballot, free from violence, free from intimidation, improper influence, or corruption, and conducted by an independent body operating at the highest levels of honest professional conduct and impartial procedure. Indeed, consistent with these expectations of fairness and impartiality in the conduct of the electoral contest in democracies around the world, the December 6, 2019 general election in Dominica was reasonably expected to be a true reflection of the will of the people. Regrettably, the conduct of this election violated the principles of the Constitution and the electoral laws of the Commonwealth of Dominica. It was not free. It was not fair. The Dominica Labour Party emerged as the beneficiary of an 18-3 result stolen through illegalities, irregularities, deliberately engaged to pervert democracy and subvert the sovereign will of the people. That is not what elections are about. I want to be clear on that point, because we elect government in democracies to run our affairs. The power of the people is transferred to a group wishing to sit in the seat of government and run our affairs for a period of 5 years. And that vote must be free, it must be fair, it must be a reflection of the will of the people by majority, the majority vote of the people, the popular will. And you know, in our system, because over the last few days, Dominica, I have heard a lot about the right of the Prime Minister to call the election at any time he wants. Admitted, it's a discretion given by the Constitution for the Prime Minister, whoever he or she is, at any point in time, to call the election when he or she wants to have an election. But the same Constitution did not give the responsibility to run the election or to conduct the election to the Prime Minister. It gave that responsibility to the Independent Electoral Commission. And so there has to be some congruity between the Prime Minister's desire to call an election and the readiness of the constitutional body for running the election to have those elections. And in this case in Dominica, what is so wrong about it is that the Prime Minister is well aware that the Electoral Commission is committed to reforming the process to guarantee a freer, fairer result in elections in Dominica. And in the middle of that preparation, which is leaning a lot on the consultancy work contracted to Sir Dennis Byron on reform, the Prime Minister sets all that aside to have another election without electoral reform, knowing fully well that the Electoral Commission is not ready for the election that it has, the type of election it has committed to organize and to conduct for the people of Dominica. Because you will recall that we were admonished by the Caribbean Court of Justice based on its assessment of the 2019 elections that the process was tainted and future elections in Dominica should not be conducted with these or similar taints. Taints are poisons. Taints are compromises to the integrity of a system or process. And so It is not that, no, people of Dominica, it is not that the Prime Minister does not have the discretion to call the election when he wants. He does have that discretion. The issue with this election is that the Electoral Commission also has a constitutional responsibility to run the election, not to call it, but to run it, to conduct it. And I don't know why is it that some people feel that the constitutional responsibility of the Prime Minister, or the discretion given to the Prime Minister, ought to override the responsibility of the constitutional responsibility of the Electoral Commission, where clearly it must run the election, and to do so, it must be ready to run the election freely and fairly. Now, that Electoral Commission, creature of the Constitution, is bound by the principle of constitutional supremacy in an assignment to duty at section 38(1) of the Constitution, whereby it shall be responsible, it says, for the registration of voters for the purpose of electing representatives and for the conduct of elections of representatives and senators, and shall have such powers and other functions relating to such registration and elections as may be prescribed by law. The powers and functions of the Electoral Commission are prescribed in the House of Assembly Elections Act and the Registration of Electors Act. The section 56(11) of the Constitution mandates that, quote, in the exercise of its functions under this Constitution, the Commission shall not be subject to the direction or control of any other person or authority. Members of the Commission are sworn to exercise its powers and to discharge its functions without fear or favor, affection or ill will, and to honor, uphold, and preserve the Constitution. A general election is not an isolated voting day event. It is part of a comprehensive process of democratic engagement and good governance involving demarcation of constituency boundaries, voter registration, organization and management of polling system, candidate nomination, campaign activities, campaign financing, access to media, counting of votes, declaration of results, and challenge of the results in a court of law. And fundamentally, the electoral process must provide for free and fair elections with integrity as the backbone of a parliamentary democracy, with the defining feature of government of the people, by the people, for the people. Of the people meaning government comes from among us. By the people meaning we select government, we choose it with votes of conscience. We let the voice of the people be truly the voice of God. And so we don't vote with bribes or treats or dollar bills of those who seek to own and corrupt the people's government for their private gain. And for the people meaning government works for us, the people, all of us together, and not exclusively or predominantly for those selected by the people to serve in government. And through its electoral office, managed by the Chief Elections Officer, the Commission, pursuant to its constitutional mandate, is required and reasonably expected to exercise its powers and perform its functions in accordance with the Constitution and Dominica's electoral laws. In this regard, and according to the website of the Electoral Office, the Electoral Commission commits, listen to this carefully, number one, to a vision to produce an accurate register of electors and achieve comprehensive voter participation in the electoral process. And two, a mission to facilitate the efficient conduct of free and fair elections in the Commonwealth of Dominica and serve the public with efficiency and impartiality. Consequently, any election to facilitate, protect, and safeguard the sovereign will of the people of Dominica, conducted contrary to constitutional principles and the rule of electoral laws, will amount to a subversion of the people's will to place the government of their affairs in the hands of masqueraders with no lawful authority to represent the people and no responsibility to be accountable to them. Let me Let me let you listen carefully now to what the Prime Minister shared with us, the people of Dominica, on the occasion of the 44th anniversary of independence of Dominica. The Prime Minister addressed the nation on Independence Day. The Prime Minister spoke in the presence of ambassadors from governments and friendly countries around the world. Ambassador for China was there, the ambassador for the United States was there, the British, a number of foreign dignitaries representing the countries were with us for the celebration of our 44th anniversary of independence. The members of the clergy were there, the leaders of church. The judiciary was there. The members of the parliament were there. The people of Dominica were in attendance. And this is what Mr. Skerrit said to them about electoral reform. Listen carefully.
I wish to take this opportunity to address the issue of electoral reform. We made a commitment to the Dominican people in 2019 that we would engage an independent party to look at the issues raised about electoral reform. We acted promptly in engaging Sir Dennis Byron, former president of the Caribbean Court of Justice, former Chief Justice of the OACS Supreme Court, and Privy Councillor, to serve as sole commissioner to investigate and advise on the issues. While the government engaged him, Sir Dennis does not report to the government. The Electoral Commission has been the coordinator of the activities of Sir Dennis, and he has been working very closely with the Commission in carrying out his responsibilities. At the request of the Electoral Commission, government made additional funding available to the Commission to enable the drafting of new bills to address changes to strengthen our electoral laws. We expect that when the process has been completed and the draft bills approved by the Electoral Commission, they will be shared with the government, opposition, and other stakeholders for consideration. While we recognize that our electoral laws have allowed for proper conduct of our elections since our independence, as with everything, there is always room for improvement. We therefore look forward to receiving and implementing the recommendations from this exercise.
We therefore look forward to receiving and implementing the recommendations of this exercise. That is a statement made to the people of Dominica in the presence of foreign dignitaries, ambassadors, the clergy, the judiciary, on the 3rd of November, or Independence Day, 2022. It is so important in this consideration of no reform, no election, that you need to listen to it again, but you need to listen very carefully. In this, the Prime Minister confirms that there was a commitment by his government to reforming the electoral process, which we all said needed to happen, and which the Caribbean Court of Justice cautioned needed to happen as well, by telling us there should be no future elections in Dominica without these reforms that would address the taints to the electoral process. One more time, the Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica on electoral reform.
I wish to take this opportunity to address the issue of electoral reform. We made a commitment to the Dominican people in 2019 that we would engage an independent party to look at the issues raised about electoral reform. We acted promptly in engaging Sir Dennis Byron, former president of the Caribbean Court of Justice, former Chief Justice of the OACS Supreme Court, and Privy Councillor, to serve as sole commissioner to investigate and advise on the issues. While the government engaged him, Sir Dennis does not report to the government. The Electoral Commission has been the coordinator of the activities of Sir Dennis, and he has been working very closely with the Commission in carrying out his responsibilities. At the request of the Electoral Commission, government made additional funding available to the Commission to enable the drafting of new bills to address changes to strengthen our electoral laws.
Let me just make the point that the initial contract with Sir Dennis was for $450,000. And then at the point that it was recognized that the services of a legal draftsman had to be engaged, legal drafting services had to be engaged, then an additional $200,000 was provided. So that takes the total assignment figure up to $650,000.
We expect that when the process has been completed and the draft bills approved by the Electoral Commission,
listen to this. We expect that when the process has been completed and the draft bills approved by the Electoral Commission,
they will be shared with the government, opposition, and other stakeholders for consideration.
All right. So that process actually began. The consultant wrote to the Prime Minister, the leader of the opposition, the political leader of the United Workers' Party, parties in Parliament, indicating that he had reached consensus with the Electoral Commission on the amendments to be made to the Registration of Electors Act, utilizing the recommendations that came from the Reform Consultancy. And those discussions would take place in this month of November, after which phase 1 of the report would be released, with the intention of having the Parliament receive the amendments, the bill amending the Registration of Electors Act in December for enactment in January of 2023. The parties were written to that effect on the 6th of November, 3 days after the Prime Minister said he was looking forward to receiving and implementing those recommendations.
While we recognize that our electoral laws have allowed for proper conduct of our elections since our independence, as with everything, there is always room for improvement. We therefore look forward to receiving and implementing the recommendations from this exercise.
And of course, there's no question that the reforms were necessary. Listen to government's chief spokesperson in legal matters, Anthony Astaphan.
The law is that even if the returning officer, the registration officer, whoever does the nomination day, knows for a fact that Mr. Li Pingqing, who comes to file the nomination papers with his endorsers and seconders, born in China, resident in Dominica for 1 week, they cannot stop him from being registered. There is no jurisdictional or legal basis for an injunction to prevent anybody from being nominated.
Yes, in fact, I can tell you that the former president of the CCJ, Sir Dennis Byron, has been asked to conduct public hearings on election reform in Dominica, and I can assure your honors that these are all issues that are going to come up within the province of recommendations to the Parliament. Legislative reform is required, and the Prime Minister and the Cabinet of the Commonwealth of Dominica has made it clear that they are going to have hearings on election reform. Parliament. Legislative reform is required, and the Prime Minister and the Cabinet of the Commonwealth of Dominica has made it clear that they are going to have hearings on election reform, headed by none other than Sir Dennis Byron. Legislative reform is required, and the Prime Minister and the Cabinet of the Commonwealth of Dominica has made it clear that they are going to have hearings on election reform, headed by none other than Sir Dennis Byron.
Headed by none other than Sir Dennis Byron. All right. Okay. Johnson Boston, as I told you, is in the studio with me. Joining me as well, the political leader of the Dominica Freedom Party, Bernard Ito. Good afternoon, sir. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, my friend. Good to be here.
All right. Good. What do you make of this?
Yes. Well,
New York.
Well, I would say that you did this quite well. And of course, our mission here is to educate the Dominican people at home and abroad and of course to educate friends of Dominica and people on the whole, wherever they are, because the truth is the truth. And as you rightly said, the Prime Minister, after the 2019 general election, did promise one of the top priorities of his government, his new government, in the first 100 days, is to appoint Sir Dennis Byron to do this work on the reform. In fact, he said one of the most vexing issues in the last election, that is 2019 general election, was electoral reform. And then in 2022, 4th of November, at the National Independence Day address, which is equivalent to the State of the Union's address in the United States, where the world is focused on you, your citizens are focused on you as to here we are, we have reached another year of independence, and what we're going to do to bring prosperity and relief to our people in the coming year. And the Prime Minister on the 3rd addressed the nation, and in his address said exactly what you played. And 3 days after, the Prime Minister decided to announce a date for a snap election. And when you are wicked, and I said here yesterday, when you're wicked and you add in your wickedness, ignorance, it really causes you to be a dangerous person. Because the Prime Minister, having said all of this in 2019, after his party's victory, in 2022, on the 3rd of November, that is saying now, like a little boy who lost his focus, who lost his mind, that he caught the opposition with their pants down. I mean, if all of these are in work, you've been written to, and all of these are in work, and you call the election, and you're celebrating that you caught the opposition with their pants down, it means you have malice intention.
Yeah, well, let's observe that the elections are not constitutionally due until May of 2025. So there's close to 2.5 years
right,
on the constitutional calendar to the next election.
That's right.
And significantly, his concern ought not to be with his political opponent,
No.
His primary concern ought to be with the body that has constitutional responsibility for running the election, for conducting the election. And he knows, based on the money of the taxpayers that he has spent on the consultancy of Sir Dennis Byron to advise on electoral reform, who is working with the commission, that he has acknowledged as well, he knows that the commission is far from ready for delivering the process, for being ready to deliver the process it has committed to the people of Dominica will be delivered before the next election.
That's right.
And of course, I need to keep mentioning this, having regard to the admonition of the Caribbean Court of Justice, our apex court, that we ought not to have future elections in Dominica beyond 2019 with the taints that the CCJ observed in the process for the 2019 election.
So when you follow this, Lennox, that tells you that the commission and the electoral office is not ready for an election because they're focused, they're engaged in the work of the
work that he's aware of.
Yes, work that
that he is well aware of.
That's right. And
so that is not leadership. What he's doing is that he is misleading the nation.
That's right, right. And to add the mischief to that, the Sunday when he announced, and people were going around, trying to get people's attention that he was going to address the nation. He did it. I mean, Sunday you go to church, you pray, you sing, you go home with your family. Sunday night you have dinner, you relax. And you heard he was addressing, you thought he was coming to address the situation in the east and the southeast. And then the gas problem where scores of people lined up for gas. But it came after it, in the evening,
9 o'clock in the night.
In the night.
Nicodemus at night.
At night, to announce a general election for the 6th of December, 2022. Now, we could have easily come to the nation on Monday morning. So you give people enough time if they have to go to the court and engage and do things and so forth, if you had a sense of leadership. And, they're trying their very best to sell and to mislead people in the mischief. But we, are guided by the principles of truth, by God, and we do the truth stronger than they do the evil thing. Then you heard senior counsel on the radio, somebody told me was on the radio last night, very upset about what transpired yesterday and the fact that we have put a coalition together to look at the salvation and the future and the orderly conduct of our nation business. And he's saying that other governments have called elections, snap elections, early election. Now I have here, if you look at 74.
Nobody disputes that.
Dispute that. But look at that, look at the record. In 1970, you had 75, you had an election. In 1979, the government that were there lost their way and did things that we did not agree with, and they were removed from government in 1979. And our president now is a primary example of that leadership in 1979. Then Oliver Serafin was appointed prime minister, and election was called in 1980, July 1980. It went until 1985. So that is almost 5 years, almost to the T of the Constitution. From 85, it go to 1990. So 5 and 5 to go to 1990. Then from 1990 to 1995, the United Workers' Party won. So in 80, 85, and 90, Freedom Party won. In 95, the United Workers' Party won. The UWP we won in 95, and they called election in 2000.
Right.
That is almost
5
years, and so on. The UWP, Royal Rosie died in 2000, Kechaza in 2004, Skerrit came in, and he waited until 2005 to call election, give him some time to maneuver. In 2009, he called an election. So that is not 5 years.
Right.
In 2014, another general election, that is not 5 years. In 2000,
well, that's almost 5 years. 2009 to 2014 is almost 5 years.
Almost 5 years, but it's not 5 years.
Right.
In 2019, another election. And in 2022, he called an election. That is 2.5 years, as you said, before it is constitutionally due. So there is some wickedness in this person's intention.
Yeah,
Bernard, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Lennox. Because, you know, we all know the real intention of Roosevelt Skerrit is not to celebrate democracy, not to develop democracy, not to enhance democracy. His real intention is to remain in power. And if we view it through the lens of him remaining in power, then everything he does makes sense from that point of view. It certainly does not make sense for a leader who is intent on celebrating democracy, developing democracy, doing political development in our country so that we become a more mature, stable, and law-abiding society. If that was his intention, if that's his motivations, then all of the things that we're saying makes complete sense. But it's clear to anyone who has spent any modicum of time looking at this situation that Roosevelt Skerrit will do everything that he can to win the elections, to make the playing field as uneven as possible. He is not at all interested in the objective of making our democracy strong. And so that is what is going on here. I had no illusions that Skerrit would implement those reforms. I was very clear on saying on many occasions he will drag this out to the point of him calling the elections and then say, well, it's too late now, we will do it later. He did it in an even more draconian fashion that I anticipated, but it was always clear to me that Roosevelt Skerrit has no intention of doing electoral reform. He still does not. He has carefully spent his time constructing a system, constructing institutions, taking over institutions, capturing institutions, changing the rules, bending the rules, augmenting the rules, flouting the rules, whatever it takes for him to set up this board in a manner that ensures that at all costs he wins. And that is the ultimate objective of Roosevelt Skerrit. It is not democracy. It is not free and fair elections. It is not in anything that helps our political development and help us move forward as a country. We're approaching almost 50 years, and we are moving backward in terms of the maturity of our political process that Roosevelt Skerrit has, overseen. And that is critical because the most important aspect of democracy in my mind is the value and the sacredness that each citizen places on the concept, the idea of democracy. And that is something that Roosevelt Skerrit has done malicious damage to the concept of democracy, because every time we participate in these elections, we normalize that indecency. Every time we participate in these elections, we normalize and model to our citizens that there is nothing wrong with shutting out an opposition from the national radio. There's nothing wrong in importing thousands and thousands of voters if you have the money to do it. There's nothing wrong in intimidating the opposition. There's nothing wrong in intimidating supporters economically and socially by saying, if you do not support me, you will not eat. If you do not support me, you will be excluded. If you do not support me, you will be shunned. Every time we participate in these tainted elections, this tilted process, this carefully constructed magic box, that it is in fact normal and become normalized.
Yeah, we cannot just not participate, all right? Because the democracy, the country, Dominica, does not belong to one man. It doesn't belong to any particular individual. And it certainly does not belong to Roosevelt Skerrit, although he behaves like that. He behaves like somebody who wants to own Dominica as his private property. And the question now is, for example, who is this election about? Because there was an election in 2019. It was controversial. A lot of us believe it was rigged and so on, but the results came down and people moved on hoping that we'll do better next time. 3 years into the play, with the reforms not completed, contrary to promise, he's gone into another election claiming that he needs a national reset.
For his party.
For his party. It's not for the country. He needs a national reset. And that what that national reset is turning out to be is that he wants to get rid of certain people in his team. He wants to send home Reginald Ostry and Rayburn Blackmore and Ian Douglas and Kenneth Daru and Rosalind Paul
and
others,
King.
Addis King and Kent Williams from La Plaine. He wants to send them home, as though he doesn't know what a cabinet reshuffle means. He doesn't feel that they are useful anymore. He says that the economy, they need a new focus on the economy. And this is the post-COVID era. The very same people he's getting rid of, he boasts that they were part of a team that wrestled COVID-19 into the ground and broke the back of the pandemic in Dominica. They were so wonderful, but all of a sudden, they're not good enough for the post-COVID environment, the kind of governance you'd like to see in the post-COVID environment. Are these people that he is bringing to the table now any more effective or trained or ready or prepared than them to run? Nobody knows, but he needs a national reset. So he's pressing the reset button, and that means we must go to an election. And I don't understand where it is written that once a man with clear tyrannical tendencies is dictating to the people, you must have elections now, that everybody should jump up and run around him and say, yes, we're going to have elections. What when he does it so he gets the vote this time, he does it again 1 year down the road? He does it anytime because he has the right to do it. He can do it. He can do it anytime.
And this group now is not good.
Yeah. So he just changes the cabinet configuration as opposed to asking ministers to resign or retiring them from their responsibilities, or telling them, listen, you're not performing, move aside, right? He wants an entire election for him to reset his party in his own image and likeness. So that is not a national election. That is a Labour Party election, right? That is using the instrumentality of the Dominica electoral system for legitimacy. And I'm saying we, the people of Dominica, should not legitimize that. It means we as the political parties, we have taken the lead and said we will not contest this election. We're expecting and we're asking the people of Dominica not to participate in the election in any way, shape, or form. Leave the election to Skerrit and the people he has paid or has facilitated in some way or another to be involved with him in the election. The most successful protest action we can have against this election is to leave it alone. Leave it alone. It is not about us. It is not for us. It is for Mr. Skerrit. Mr. Skerrit should have his election. Now, the people in this regard have some very specific responsibilities. Nobody in Dominica has any moral obligation at all. Nobody has any moral obligation at all to obey a misleader or to obey instructions that are calculated to mislead, to deceive the people of Dominica. So there needs to be, in all of this, a national response, a response of the entire nation. Because this is turning out to be not Roosevelt Skerrit's political party against any other political party in Dominica. This is Roosevelt Skerrit against the people of Dominica, whose electoral process he wants to take as his own, to play his own football with for his own personal gain. And the people of Dominica, whose electoral process it is, they must respond. And they must say, no, you cannot do that.
That's right.
We're not going to allow you to do that. You cannot be playing football with our electoral process for your own personal benefit. And I would like the people of Dominica, especially those contemplating contesting the election as independents or as hastily put together political parties, stay away from that. Stay away from that. This is not about, you have ample time to properly constitute your political party, put your group together, you want to contest the next election. When we have reform, when we succeed with the reforms that we're demanding, then we go to elections. And so the nation should ignore this December 6th election and insist on real elections within the next 2.5 years when the reforms are completed. Because that is what we've been asking for close to 20 years.
Yes. And let us, as you made the point, what we are doing and what we're asking the people to support us in, that is the people's business. What Skerrit is doing is Skerrit and the Labour Party business.
Yeah. It's very clear.
Yes, but the issue is the people actually no longer view it in many instances as their business, as their process. The understanding has been lost. I mean, we're talking about a generation of young folks who simply do not understand fully that it is their process, that it is their election, that they actually truly do have the ownership of the institutions of Dominica. And they think that they are simply privy and privileged that Mr. Skerrit lets them participate in his business. And it seems to me that this is one of the dilemmas that we face. It's not an abstract question. It's a very real thing that within the hearts of the people, they have forgotten that, in fact, the government institutions, institutions of state, are actually ours, and we have a right, and we need to have reverence for those, and we're willing to stand up and protect those, independent of any particular political party or any leader. And that is the message that we need to keep rallying the people to. Take back your institution, take back your power, gain ownership again of your process, feel responsibility again for the process of democracy and elections in your country.
In fact, Lennox, to me, that will test the Christian consciousness of our people at home and abroad. And it will demonstrate to the world whether we have more people who understand how a democracy should work, how a government should behave, how a leader should lead in government, and how the institutions of government should be respected, or if we have more people who just go for the wrong things, endorse the wrong things, celebrate the wrong things, and throw our country to the dogs. That is a test for Dominicans' Christian consciousness in this matter, because it's not a matter that we are shouting and talking about. It's a matter where, and I made the example of somebody, you're responsible for your children, your father, and you have the right to discipline your children. Now your son do something that you not pleased of, and you start to slap him and cuff him and kick him. Obviously, that person's back is against the wall, and they no longer see you as a father. They see you as an abuser, and they will react now to defend themselves. And that is where Skerrit has placed the country. And I think every Dominican, the best thing we can do to save our beloved country is to come out in our numbers when you're called to come out, to show that numbers matters. And if this gentleman see 10,000 plus people on the road, 5,000 or so on the road, saying we do not want you to go in that wrong direction, we have been there for too long, because as you said earlier on, it's 14 years to be exact, since we are fighting electoral reform. We went as far as the United Workers' Party and the Freedom Party. 14 over 40 years.
Since the promise.
Yeah.
14 years since the promise from the Electoral Commission that we would have a clean list and ID cards.
Cards.
14 years.
Yes. Now, there was a delegation of the Freedom Party and the UWP. A white paper was put out to the media, and that delegation went to St. Kitts, where there was an OECS heads of government meeting. And they went there to raise awareness about our electoral process and where it was. The only prime minister who gave them a hearing at the time was King from St. Lucia. The others like the Kenny Anthony and the Denzel Douglas didn't matter. But we're in a position where we are a CARICOM, OECS country. We belong to the United Nations. We belong to the Commonwealth of Nations. And we can't be left alone to be abused and to be kicked and to be stripped off from our rights from a government that we as a country, I would say, in 2000 and 2005 elected to govern us. And since then we have seen our process is not fair. The playing field has been totally destroyed. And that's where we're at.
3:56 is the afternoon time. We thank you very much for joining us on this special program, Q95 on Sunday afternoon, 3 to 6. No reform, no election. That's where the focus is. In a few minutes, in just a little bit, I'm going to share with you some of the things that Roosevelt Skerrit has said about the Byron Consultancy. And listen to this piece from the CCG about the importance of free and fair elections, and then we'll get to Mr. Skerrit on the Byron Consultancy. I want to begin with a read of paragraph 77 of the judgment, which addresses the issue of free and fair elections. And it says, without free and fair elections, the value of the creation and maintenance of and respect for lawfully constituted authority would be fatally undermined. The consequence of such a denial that a reflection on Caribbean history demonstrates include loss of legitimacy, public unrest, and even revolt. In contemporary terms, free and fair elections are so fundamental to the democratic way of life that without it, the very legitimacy and sovereignty of the constitutional state is brought into question, constituted as is by the people of Dominica. In this regard, it is worth reminding ourselves the will of the people shall be the basis of legitimacy of government.
They have an issue with the fees paid to Sir Dennis Byron. No, give me a break. I mean, we in Dominica have to be enlightened. I mean, we have more university graduates now than we had any time in our history.
Yes.
And therefore we must demonstrate our knowledge of global issues, our enlightenment with regards to what is required and so forth. And we're looking at little fees paid to a gentleman who was held some of the highest judicial positions in our jurisdiction.
Yes. So just to be clear, he has no problem with the fees that were paid. As a matter of fact, he was thumbing his nose at the Dominicans who would have expressed any concern about that because, you know, we just needed to be enlightened, you know, and everything will be fine.
Yes. You know, I mean, and we're making little money appear to be this billions of dollars and so on.
Little money.
Yes.
Little money, $450,000.
And, you know, as a fall, we are priding ourselves in these days in this country with envy and jealousy. How do you we must not look at what people are entitled to based on our own circumstance. And one of the things I would like to challenge Mr. Linton.
Okay, so you need to follow this carefully now. It's 4:00 in the afternoon, people. One of the things he wanted to challenge Lennox Linton on regarding the Byron consultancy. Listen very carefully.
One is let us sign with the guidance of Sir Dennis a joint agreement. And one of the things I would like to challenge Mr. Linton on is let us sign with the guidance of Sir Dennis a joint agreement.
Let us sign with the guidance of Sir Dennis a joint agreement. That's what he wanted to do with me as leader of the opposition. Okay?
That we shall respect the recommendations coming out of this process and abide by it. If he says he's very serious and sincere about electoral reform, let's sign this agreement.
So now, who is serious about electoral reform?
Unsincere.
You were suggesting to me, the leader of the opposition, that we should, guided by Sir Dennis, sign an agreement that will abide by the recommendations he's made. That's what your representation to the people was.
That's right.
And then, just as Sir Dennis is writing to you, you're turning your back on him. You're sabotaging the assignment that you paid $450,000 plus another $200,000 of taxpayers' money for, because you want to go to an election to fix your business in the Dominica Labour Party.
Let's sign this agreement. This game playing is not going to help him. It's going to help the country.
So now you see all the things in his head. He's talking about game playing. Who is playing games now? Who's playing games? Because now the rationale is he wants a national reset. And then there's another narrative that says the opposition was caught with its pants down. So they have to decide which one is it. Which one is it really? Which one is it? Really?
And I can tell you whatever recommendations are going to come out of this, I shall abide.
Yeah.
And I can tell you whatever recommendations are going to come out of this, I shall abide. And I can tell you whatever recommendations are going to come out of this, I shall abide.
All right. I can tell you whatever recommendations are going to come out of this, I shall abide. 2 minutes after 4:00 in the afternoon, we'll take a few phone calls on 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, and 616-4257. You could reach us here at Q95. Good afternoon.
What the law has just carried committee? What offense has it committed?
What is this caller talking about? Did we say that Mr. Skerritt has offended any law? We said he has the constitutional discretion to call the election, but we also said that he doesn't have the constitutional responsibility to operate the election or to conduct the election or to run the election.
Or to abuse his power.
And he's abusing his power to call the election, overriding the authority of the Electoral Commission, who he knows is not ready for the kind of election and with the electoral process through which they committed to conduct the next election in Dominica. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. How you all doing?
We're good.
We're doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing fine, but I'm going to call on. I'm calling on what I observed yesterday. While Skerritt demand that used to sit on the seat of Prime Minister calling election for Dominica, we Skerritt know that Dominicans he wasn't ready for, and Dominicans were not ready for that because election is constitutionally due 2024-2025.
Yes.
Till then, Byron gave us all the works that goes with it. That's what Skerritt was saying. Skerritt went ahead and called his election for himself. When I went up to Cassie Bruce yesterday and saw the devastation here from the junction of the Emerald Pool going all the way through Good Hope. Marquesa, carried. You calling on young people to put up flags all over the place for you. I think the young people of Dominica right now should get off, are they calling them vehicle, them heavy duty vehicle, and go up in that area. The little dumper they have going around, go up in the area there and look at the devastation that the people there are looking so sad because they're wondering what's going to come next. Because when you're looking at the left side, when you're going down in that area, my God, it's a disgrace to look at what happened in that area. The people have lost all their vegetation there. They cannot grow nothing in that area. All the way down to the Cassie Bruce apartment there. Everything there washed away. And you call in an election, carry the treating Dominicans like he have a farm, a chicken farm, and he just throwing food outside there for his chickens to come and eat. Young people of Dominica is not ready for any election, especially due to the fact that Kerry said he would give us voters' ID cards, cleaning of the voters' list, and we paid Dennis Byron around over $600,000 to do that. We should have general election. In 2025, with voters' ID cards and access to the media and everything that goes with it. All independent people, if all you love all your country, Mr. Norde and Taira, if all you love all your country, do the honorable thing and back out from Skerrit election, not to go and give Skerrit election wings to fly because it's Skerrit election. Thank you.
Thank you very much. 406. Good afternoon. Hello, good afternoon. Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon,
Very
sir.
interesting program. Let me say good afternoon to party leader Bernard Johnson Boston and you, Leonard.
Thank you, sir.
Leader of the opposition.
Good afternoon. Yes.
One of the fundamental things I want to bring up to you is he did not only forget or reverse his decision that he promised, He lied in Parliament. He went to Parliament and asked them for money for electoral reform before the next general election. And he's doing otherwise. Now, Lennox, if you were to do that, I suspect they would move to censure you, right? Under the rules of the House.
Indeed.
Okay? And my concern is, how can our president know that and not call the man in with you to question him about that? This is how democracy operates. But apparently he's a president to promote dictatorship. This is one thing I find that is fundamentally wrong with their thinking to go to Parliament and lie. That makes him no longer honorable, which is a matter that we should take up with him in Parliament. The next thing is conflict of interest. It is my understanding, and a couple of the people recommended that he had as candidate are in business with the government. Don't they understand the issue of conflict of interest? And that is illegal in democratic countries.
Yeah.
This is a fundamental thing that we need to educate those young people that you cannot just go into government unless they change the rules of conflict of interest for this Labour Party. It's all right, you can have a contract with government even if you're a minister, okay? And even if your auntie or uncle is the head of the department. That is something that is going on, and we need to call out those things. Because these young persons who they putting up there cannot do better than what they have. Okay?
Yep.
And the fact that they're used to him for the last 20 years, They don't understand conflict of interest and what democratic principles are, basic democratic principles. You don't call a senior jurist that you want us to respect and disrespect him the day he give you a document or letter specifying that he's ready for you to implement. You disrespecting him and taking him political joke. You pick up somewhere in Mao or Master and ask to run election for you. Man, this is ridiculous, and I think we need to call it for what it is. And Roosevelt Skerrit and the president and you, Mr. Linton, supposed to have a serious meeting and before they have any swearing in of any candidate. Not swearing in, but any nomination.
All right. Thank you.
Good afternoon and good luck with your program.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
10 past 4 in the afternoon. Now, it was made earlier of the letter from Sir Dennis Byron to the Prime Minister, the leader of the opposition, and the political leader of the United Workers' Party. It's dated the 6th of November, 2022. This one to the leader of the opposition says, "Dear Mr. Linton, I greet you respectfully and assure you that I am working towards expediting the presentation of my recommendations for the improvement of the electoral process in the Commonwealth of Dominica. I will be presenting my report in 2 phases. Phase 1 will deal with the registration of electors, and phase 2 with the election process. I am in the final stage of the phase 1 report. It is in this context that I present to you under confidential cover a draft registration of electors bill and draft registration of electors regulations, and invite you to study these drafts and be available for consultative meeting regarding them at a time to be agreed. These drafts should not be presented to the public. Publication should be the responsibility of the Honorable Prime Minister only after I have made a formal presentation to him of my report. I have been mindful that my engagement carries the expectation of bringing the sharp divisions of opinion that have handicapped the completion of this reform exercise. Against this background, legislative support is required to give effect to the recommended reforms. The existing legislation relating to the registration of electors as well as the electoral process is quite old, and it has been a flashpoint for political disagreement and community dissatisfaction. Merely amending the existing laws would not satisfy the goals of the reform exercise. New legislation is needed to modernize the electoral system and to bring it in line with international best practices. The preparation of the new legislation has benefited from the expertise of Dr. Beverly Pereira, legislative drafting specialist. It was also considered that consensus resulting from the consultation with the Electoral Commission would increase the probability of acceptance of the proposed reforms. Consultation took longer than anticipated, and it was characterized by robust discussion and even resulted in several modifications to drafts of the proposed legislative instruments. I am pleased to report that the draft legislation now presented to you has the consensus of the Commission. I do not present accompanying information, but I'm willing to respond to your inquiries and submit any information you may request. Finally, my proposals as to the timelines going forward are as follows. 1, I will present phase 1 report during the month of November 2022. 2, the Parliament tables the registration of electors legislation in December 2022 with a plan to enact it in January 2023 so that the registration of electors, the register of electors could be compiled in accordance with the recommendations during that calendar year. 3, I will present phase 2 of the report after a consultation process similar to that undertaken for phase 1 in February to March of 2023. Parliament tables and enacts the phase 2 legislation in March, April of 2023. Sincerely, Sir Dennis Byron. This correspondence to the leader of the opposition is copied to Mr. Duncan Stowe, the chairman of the Electoral Commission. 4:14 is the afternoon time, so there was a clear plan, gentlemen, and the Prime Minister scuttled it by calling for general elections. So now we have a situation in our hands where the public is being asked to participate in an election that has nothing to do with them. And an election which again is going to violate the commitment that even the Prime Minister himself made to the people of Dominica, that the process would be reformed. And that would be consistent with the admonition of the Caribbean Court of Justice that we should not have elections in Dominica again. With the taints that to the process that were observed in the 2019 election. And we know that some of those taints go way back. They didn't just surface in 2019. Remember what the Commonwealth Observer Mission said in 2014 about being free but not necessarily fair. And what we ourselves had observed, which is consistent through the last 4 electoral cycles, in the last 3 or 4 electoral cycles in Dominica.
No, I was saying, and he's taken this thing and make a joke out of it and been silly by even saying that he's the leader of the Freedom Party. I mean, you're the leader of the Labour Party, and you're so confused.
Well, he's the leader of the Freedom Party
because
he has the former leader with him. Former leader of the Freedom Party with him, no?
Yeah, but that doesn't make him a leader of the Freedom Party.
Let me ask you, what kind of rapport do you have with the president, who's the former leader of the Freedom Party?
Well, we say hello nicely. We're all civilized people, but we disapprove of his handling of nation business.
Bernard, you have any rapport with him?
Not directly. I mean, again, civil, rapport as decent people, but we certainly don't have, I think, any sort of constitution, philosophical rapport with him, for sure.
I wrote to him on this. I wrote to him. I want to share that letter, which is dated the 9th of November, to His Excellency Charles Savard, President, Commonwealth of Dominica, State House Roseau, Commonwealth of Dominica. Your Excellency, re the calling of snap elections with a tainted electoral process. The issue of writs for a general election on December 6, 2022, more than 2 years before the constitutionally due date for the next general election, in circumstances where the reform of a tainted electoral process has been unreasonably denied, is the most savage attack on the democratic right to free and fair elections conducted with the hallmark of integrity. As the holder of the office in which the executive authority of the Commonwealth of Dominica is vested, you have a moral obligation to protect the state from the excesses of the ruling party politicians who are hell-bent on hijacking the electoral process and manipulating it with impunity for their corrupt personal gain. Notwithstanding the constitutional provision that, quote, in the exercise of his powers to dissolve Parliament, the President shall act in accordance with the advice of the Prime Minister, end of quote, the legitimate expectation across the nation was that you would have objected to such a request and allowed the tainted electoral process to be reformed before the next general election, constitutionally due in May of 2025. You are very much aware of the guidance offered by the Caribbean Court of Justice, the CCJ, or Apex Court, on the way forward, based on its judicial assessment of the suitability of the electoral process for the purpose of free and fair elections. The CCJ concluded at paragraph 108 of his July 2022 decision on a 2019 election petition matter, quote, there remain areas of grave concern about how the process of these 2019 elections was conducted. Future elections in Dominica ought not to proceed with these or similar taints. By letter dated 8th of August 2022, I requested Your Excellency's urgent attention in 2 matters arising out of the CCJ decision. Number 1, the need for the President of Dominica to use his good office to ensure that the Electoral Commission and the officers he has appointed to conduct free and fair elections in Dominica heed the advice of the CCJ and implement the necessary electoral reforms to put an end to the continuing practice of tainted general elections in Dominica. And two, the need for the president of Dominica to order an investigation into the circumstances surrounding the failure to adequately address a patent non-compliance with the provisions of Dominica's election law in the 2019 election. Your Excellency did nothing and refused to act in your own deliberate judgment, although these matters indirectly relate to the Constituency Boundaries Commission and the Electoral Commission. You are aware that the Commonwealth Observer Mission at the 2014 general election concluded that the election was not necessarily fair due to multiple instances of bribery, cheating, including the transportation of electors to the island to vote, and the apparent abuses of incumbency, including a lack of impartiality in the provision of public services. You are aware that of the obstructionist conduct of the Prime Minister that has, for 14 years and 3 election cycles, deliberately prevented the so-called Independent Electoral Commission from delivering on a 2008 commitment to clean the voters list and issue ID cards for voting. You're aware that the Prime Minister requested a joint mission from the Organization of American States, the Commonwealth and CARICOM, to advise on reforms of the electoral process before the 2019 election, and yet refused to accept the joint mission's recommendations. You're aware that the eminent Caribbean jurist, Sir Dennis Byron, was retained by Cabinet after the 2019 general elections at a cost of $450,000 to review electoral reform recommendations, consult with the people, and advise on improving the electoral process. You are also aware that the recommendations of Sir Dennis will be presented in the form of amendments to the Registration of Electors Act in Phase 1 and the House of Assembly Elections Act in Phase 2, which required legal drafting services at an additional cost of $200,000 to the public purse. The people of this nation reasonably believed that the recommendations of the Sir Dennis Byron consultancy to improve the electoral process with amendments to our electoral laws would at least be considered by the Parliament of Dominica before the next general election. By letter dated November 6, 2022, Sir Dennis advised the Prime Minister that he had reached consensus on proposals to amend the Registration of Electors Act with the Electoral Commission and was therefore ready to present Phase 1 of his report during the month of November 2022, this very month. Sir Dennis advised the Prime Minister on moving ahead with the electoral reform recommendations as follows. 1, I'll present Phase 1 report during the month of November 2022. 2, Parliament to table the registration of electors legislation in December 2022 with the plan to enact it in January 2023 so that the register of electors could be compiled in accordance with the recommendations during that calendar year. 3, I'll present Phase 2 of the report after a consultation process similar to that undertaken for Phase 1 in February, March of 2023. And 4, Parliament to table and enact the Phase 2 legislation in March, April of 2023. Instead of committing to facilitate completion of the electoral reform process on the advice and recommendation of the Sir Dennis Byron consultancy, engaged at significant cost to the state, the Prime Minister has announced a dissolution of Parliament and a snap general election with the same tainted electoral process that we all know and accept is unfit for free and fair vote. The Prime Minister's justification is that he needs a national reset so that he can get rid of a number of ruling party members of Parliament who broke the back of the COVID-19 in Dominica and wrestled it to the ground because they are not competent enough now to operate in this post-COVID governance of Dominica. I'm sure you will agree, respectfully, Mr. President, that this makes absolutely no sense in the public interest of free and fair elections with integrity as the backbone of our democracy. All we are witnessing here is the tyrannical march of one man to absolute ownership, not leadership, and control of Dominica, its people, its resources, and its currently flawed process for freely and fairly electing a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Respectfully, sir, it is time to use the executive authority of the Commonwealth of Dominica, vested in you as president, to rescue our country from the galloping, sinister threat to our existence as a responsible and developing member of the family of nations. For our part, the United Workers' Party, the official opposition party, shall not be contesting the sham general election and thereby deny the Prime Minister the moral authority to lead this country. Respectfully, Lennox Linton, Leader of the Opposition. So that was sent to the President. And I am going as Leader of the Opposition because, by the way, I'm Leader of the Opposition until Parliament meets after the election. That's the assignment that I have. That's the instrument that I have in my possession. So I'm going to write to the CARICOM, and I'm going to copy organizations like the OAS and the Commonwealth and the friendly governments around the world, because you see, we have what may well be shaping up to be a volatile situation in Dominica, which has been created by this surprise announcement against the background of the various reports on our tainted electoral system, and in the face of the recent discussions with Sir Dennis, whom he appointed as the one-man commission to investigate and make the necessary recommendations. I want to let those bodies know that our party will not be contesting the election, and we are in the process. We are in the process of advising others, possible independent candidates, not to obtain nomination, and the general public not to participate in the voting process at all. Just leave it alone. And that already we have voices calling for unity in opposing the election call, and the PM's response makes it very likely that there could be violent public confrontations. We need the good offices of these institutions to monitor and to address the growing possibility of unrest. And it's important that they're aware of that, because, you know, they interfere when they feel they have to interfere at the invitation of the Prime Minister. They came to Dominica through the RSS in December of 2019 with the machine guns and so on to tell us that something was wrong with with what we were doing, as opposed to something being wrong with Ruth Skerritt, that was denying us ID cards that all of them have in their countries, and all of them have procedures in their countries for regularly cleaning the list of electors, keeping it sanitized. Someone on the telephone at 428, good afternoon. Hello? Let's try this line. Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you doing?
Yes, I noticed you had me on hold for the longest time. And
I'm sorry about that.
Yes, that's not right. Anyhow, what I'm asking, whether the parties put an injunction to the High Court or to the Caribbean Court of Justice, because I heard you just say a while ago you are going to do it. I check in well, like
no, I'm not going to.
Hold on, let me finish, mate. You all had a whole week, and today you say your intention, you're just going to write them. I find that all is supposed to be in advance. So, second point. Now, in the Skerritt going ahead with the diverse party election. Now, the independent candidate, now, if they end up competing and then an election call on the 6th, which the FEMI is saying that no reform, no election. What would happen in the event that we know that the independent will not win, but Skerrit will get the majority? I would like some explanation, please. Thank you very much.
First of all, let me just clarify. I'm not going to file any injunction. The lawyers have been asked to look at the possibility of injuncting the election on specific grounds. And the lawyers will indicate whether they think there's a reasonable chance of success with that, whether we should proceed with it, or whether we should wait to challenge the results of the election after the elections have been held based on certain irregularities that have been observed as of right now. So the call for the injunction, we can only, as political parties, request the advice and guidance of the lawyers, and that process is ongoing. What I said just now is that I'm going to write to institutions like the CARICOM, like the OAS, like the Commonwealth. I'm going to make sure that friendly governments are aware of what is happening and the potential for unrest that could emerge because of the conduct of the Prime Minister and his response to the reaction of people so far that he is behaving unreasonably and indeed in a very disgraceful manner by trying to use our electoral process as his own personal football for his own private gain. And the message to the people of Dominica is that you should not allow it. The people of Dominica have a moral obligation to prevent nomination from taking place and to prevent the election from happening, because this is not their election, this is Skerrit's election. Skerrit cannot be given the leeway or the privilege of having an election and masquerading it as though it is the people's election when it is really his election to deal with matters inside of his Labour Party, not to do anything with Dominica at all. Remember, it was announced when Dominica was under stress. The brothers and sisters living in the east of Dominica were under floodwaters. They were being disconnected from the rest of the country. The whole country was in the grip of a gas shortage, and the Prime Minister, like Nicodemus in the night, was coming to tell us about an election. This had nothing to do with us. An election that is 2.5 years before the constitutional due date is not a people's election, because you have not come with any compelling reasons why you want an election. There is no instability going on in the country at this moment. There is no mass resignation of people from your cabinet. Everybody loves you. Everybody is adoring you. What is the reset that you're talking about? And the people of Dominica need to consider that it is not their business. They have no responsibility to just go along with whatever Skerrit tells them they need to go along with. So when Skerrit says election, they say, okay, when? No, that's not it. We object to an election on the 6th of December because the Electoral Commission is not ready to deliver the election with the process that it is committed to reform. And that process is ongoing. So nobody in Dominica has any responsibility or obligation to obey the instructions that ensue from misleadership. So if you are in the Electoral Commission, for example, you're employed by the state, you shouldn't be paying attention to any nomination papers or preparing nomination papers for anybody at this stage. I'm advised that the Electoral Commission was scrambling on Monday when the writs were issued to have a list now of returning officers across 21 constituencies. That means you're not ready. Even with that basic responsibility, you're not ready. So how can you, in good conscience, members of the Electoral Commission, give the people the impression that because Skerrit wants an election, you're ready to deliver it, even though the process he was involved in with you, he has sabotaged and he's setting aside? We need to hear you.
Yes, Lennox, usually when the Prime Minister give the President the advice to dissolve Parliament, and you have, when the writ is issued, you have up to midnight on that day for persons who are not on the voters list to be registered. Nothing happened. Nobody was involved. There was no. I mean, you see
It's crazy.
in your area because where I live, there's a registration officer next close to me there. And
Right.
normally you see, even 2019, scores of people going to register, calling their party, calling their organizers to take them to the poll. They're involved.
Yes.
There was nothing like that. No excitement about that. Nobody up to midnight carrying anybody to register. Some registration officers in some areas were out of state. So really the electoral office is not ready. And they ought to be ready because they are conducting the election on behalf of the people, not on behalf of the Labour Party. And the Labour Party and the government is not conducting election for the rest of the country. So democracy, and if, for example, your party and they give you to conduct election, obviously you understand power, you put it on your side. But this is why you have the Independent Electoral Commission to do that.
It's very important, and it points out who are the real people he caught with their pants down.
Yeah.
The Electoral Commission was the major person with the
There you
pants
go.
down.
There you go.
And that is what we need to keep informing the Dominican public.
All right, the phone lines are going at 4:35. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to my right honorable.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, my dear.
ma'am.
This is what you call disrespect. Skerrit wants everybody to respect him. Well, he's not my God. But he is disrespecting Mr. Byron because he don't agree to what he said to him or what if. But one thing I know, you cannot have a rotten head and new people under a rotten head. Everybody will get rotten. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. At 4:36. Good afternoon.
Look, that election was banned. That can't cause because Mr. doing what he wants. So that's for us to ban.
Well, yeah, so that's for the people of Dominica to decide how they're going to do that. And we'll talk about that. 4:36. Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
I'm a bit disappointed because I haven't heard much emphasis on what the Constitution requires. So I have a couple of questions. First one, I heard the mention about the Electoral Commission asking for $200,000 for the drafting of the whatever changes come from Mr. Byron. The problem I have with that is I don't see that mandated in the Constitution where the Electoral Commission drafts legislation. And secondly, the Constitution requires that before the decision is proposed that will affect the Commission's work, that it must be submitted to the Commission. That does not allow for prior consultation with the Commission. I mean, if we're pretending that the Constitution is just a bystander, it really has no importance. It is no wonder we're in a mess. So I'm not sure that the people of Dominica understand what the Constitution is, and I do think that we're emphasizing that. Now, the next thing I want to address is the gentleman who asked the question about what happens if the election goes through, as it seems it will, and Mr. Skerrit gets all 21 seats. Here we have to turn to the Constitution, because if that happens, Dominica is going to be in a lot of trouble, because the Constitution requires that before Parliament can sit, there must be a Speaker of the House. Well, the Speaker of the House is allowed for, it will be voted on. There must be a Prime Minister, there must be a Clerk of the House, there must be a Leader of the Opposition. But if Mr. Skerrit gets all 21 seats, the President cannot appoint a Leader of the Opposition.
Right.
So there will be no legal parliament in Dominica. Parliament will not be able to sit in Dominica. This is going to be a seriously untested area. Now, the problem we have is this. People, you can do whatever you want. You can violate the law, you can violate the Constitution, but we must not presume that when we violate the Constitution, which does not impose any penalty for such violations, that nothing happens. For 44 years, we have pretended that if you violate the Constitution, nothing happens. That is not true. Dominicans don't understand what the Constitution stands for. They don't understand what it means. They don't understand the implications. And I think we need some serious education in those respects. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Let me just make the point that while these are uncharted waters in Dominica, those waters have been charted in Grenada, where you had the Keith Mitchell administration or the Keith Mitchell political party winning all the seats in the parliament in 2 successive elections. And you had the same thing just happening in Barbados, the Mia Mottley political party, the Barbados Labour Party, winning all 30 seats in the Barbados parliament in 2 successive elections. And so they would have been in a similar position like us prior to those events that brought all the seats in the parliament into one political party. And so there may be some lessons that we learn from them as to how to proceed, because we all come from the same British background in terms of our laws and our constitutions and so on.
I believe the Constitution allows for the president to have the powers to appoint a leader of the opposition.
No, you can bring force
from among the persons in parliament who do not support the elected members who do not support the government. And since there will be no elected members since the likely scenario is no elected government members who support the government.
In fact, Lennox, in Barbados, somebody from the government side then was appointed leader of the opposition.
Had to step down. Had to leave the government.
Leave the government.
Yeah,
had to leave the government.
Yes. That's something. The mechanisms exist for these things to be.
But he has to leave. But he has to leave the government. And if nobody wants to leave, because everybody eyes on being a minister, then obviously you have a difficulty.
Well, yes, but I think there will be a constitutional impasse. But I think the mechanisms to work through it. But it is an impasse.
Because even now, and before Keith Mitchell lost, I think in the reform they were doing, they had a referendum, and in that referendum, they had put in there to legislate the appointment of a leader of the opposition if one party got all the seats.
Yes.
But that referendum, they lost it.
Right. They're trying to put it into law.
And I think Barbados, Mayor Mottley then said the last time that she doesn't think it is safe and it is secure to have a parliament without a leader of the opposition. So they were looking at the possibility of legislation to make provision for that. So there is a difficulty that we will face.
Yeah, there is a dilemma for sure. There is no doubt.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's that. But there's another point that the caller had raised regarding something else. It doesn't come back to mind right now. At 4:42, let's
all lines are good.
We'll take a few phone calls in a while. No. Let's do that now. Yes, good afternoon. Hello, good afternoon.
Right, to the Dominican public.
Mills, behave yourself.
Good afternoon.
Behave yourself. Go and run for St. Joe.
Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, gentlemen.
How are you doing? Yes, go right ahead.
Listen, Mr. Linton and Mr. Boston. On the 7th of November, at the meeting at the Public Service Building, I realized there was a lawyer who made objections that the opposition party putting in an injunction. And I find out it was clear, in other words, he was giving his own opinion as to what the court will decide, knowing fully well he has not judged books in the court. And he made that opinion, he gave that opinion. So I decided I'm going to check him out next day. And you know what I found out? This same lawyer, Mr. Lita, is a CBI agent.
Well, we don't want to attack anybody and call him name.
No. So, that's public thing. He's a CBI agent and he's an IBC agent.
Yeah, but he has the legal opinion that is not in favor of injuncting an election that is being called. Is not unpopular,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But the extent in Dominica right now, we are in very unusual circumstances.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because here he's a CBI and an IBC agent, and he's advising the opposition, do not take part in them, do not boycott the election.
Yeah, okay, but
do not protest.
but he has the right to do that. All right, they don't have to take the advice,
because the opposition, the parties don't have to take the advice.
Yeah.
But the lawyer will give you a legal opinion.
That's what they offer.
And there are those legal opinions
which will differ.
There are those legal opinions even from people who are not CBI agents and IBC agents. All right?
Because let us
thanks, caller.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon to everybody, all the honorables in the house.
Yes.
Thanks for being here and sharing with the people this afternoon.
And to you too.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Can you guys hear me clearly?
Loud
Very
and
well,
clear.
very well.
Yeah. Then our religion and our politics, we treat them the same way in Dominica. We do not treat the Bible nor the Constitution as living institutions. And that is our problem. They're abstract. The only time we worry about them is when our back is against the wall. And that's why we are where we are. But we cannot grow as a people through someone else's or some other nation's experience. The reason why they have grown is because they have the experience. The reason why we are where we are is because we have not had the experience. You have to go into uncharted waters vis-a-vis your constitution for you to grow as a nation, politically and otherwise, philosophically and otherwise. But this argument that is going on in Dominica, it has gotten caught up in the constitution, and I don't know why. I think it's planned to be caught up in it, because to me, where we are right now is an issue of disrespect, an issue of total arrogance, an issue of not a leader and people of a nation relationship, but we on an empire, a plantation. It is necessary. You see this juncture we are there. It is necessary for us to take this juncture, because, my brothers and sisters, if we do not address this juncture, this constitution that Brother Dr. Likon amplified for us a while ago, it will be dead. And it's already dead in our consciousness because we're not aware of its particulars and its exceptions and its rules. We're not aware of them because we're not treated as a living institution. But because we go through this thing that we're going through there, we're going to pay more attention to the Constitution. We're going to turn it into a living document. The very things that appear to be anti the Constitution that people are saying that we're trying to do, these are the very things that are going to eventually end up empowering the Constitution. We have to go through this juncture. We need not be afraid. It's uncharted waters, but it's just. It's just. I mean, we have the international, we have the world behind us. Some people keep questioning, well, what's going to happen if these guys get 21? What's going to happen? My brother, Charles Savard, told it to us, the only determinant is mass. There is no wrong struggle. The only thing that makes the struggle wrong is it fails. And we are at a point, we have an issue of electoral reform where I don't think there is any better issue to pull the whole nation together on consciousness. I see a nice thing being said where even the politicians are coming together and realizing we have to do. I love that example. So if the people, is the religious leaders, we have a chance to stand up on something that, although it is political, it is not political. And there's no better chance for us. And so I say, hell with these distractions, brothers and sisters. Let's fight this fight.
Indeed. Very good. Yeah, God bless. Peace and blessings. More phone calls at 447. Good afternoon.
Clinton, I just want to ask a question. Everything that is going on by now, Dennis Byron should know what's going on in the country.
Oh, yes.
Knowing that he sent a letter to Roosevelt Skerrit pertaining to the electoral reform business. By now, he should have come out and say something. Has anybody reached out to him and ask him what his opinion on what is going on right now? And what steps should the people of Dominica take? If anybody asked him that question, we would really like to know, because Dennis Byron should be forthcoming and tell the people exactly what we should do and maybe help us do something.
Well, what I can say to that is that Sir Dennis Byron is an eminent, world-renowned jurist. He has been involved in many assignments through the years that directly engage people, especially in the courts and so on. He's handed down numerous judgments. He should be aware of what judgment needs to be handed down.
In fact, Lennox was the one who said some years ago that people need to know as quickly as possible who their true elected representatives are. So if there's a matter in court,
that was Hugh Rollins.
Hugh Rollins, okay, Hugh Rollins, yes.
at the
Thanks for
at
the
the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court.
But just to quickly answer though, I know Gabriel Christian has made contact with him.
Right.
And then bear in mind that he would not interfere in our business unless we ourselves show the determination that we are not going to accept what is going on. Then he can step in there when he see our determination.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's his business to get involved in statements at this time that might seem to be
supporting one side or the other.
So supporting one side or the other. What is ahead of him is completing the assignment that he has accepted. And it will be interesting to see how that gets done. 4:50 is the afternoon time. There was a time in Dominica where we understood the importance of civil disobedience in circumstances where the nation and people were being misled by their leaders. And we're being misled by this one now, corruptly for the personal gain of that leader. And it will be interesting to see what our national response is. Like I said, this becomes Roosevelt Skerrit versus the people of Dominica, and the people of Dominica need to respond. And people should be looking now to be disobedient to instructions that tell them anything about an election that has nothing to do with them. Right?
As I've said,
and let's go back. Let's go back, because these statements from the past in our Dominica are very important.
The time has come when Patrick John must lead the government of this country to the people of this country.
1979. So in 2022, I'm saying, Mr. Savre, I hope you join me. The time has come when Roosevelt Skerrit must leave the government of Dominica to the people of Dominica.
The time has come when Patrick John and the little stooges who are around him must understand that the people are taking control of their country.
And the time has come when Roosevelt Skerrit and the stooges around him must understand that the people are taking control of their country.
The time has come when the people will bring to justice people who acquire high office and use that office to commit crimes against the people of this country.
And the time has come when the people will take action against those who are using their positions against the people of Dominica. Okay? I just wanted to use the voice and the advocacy of the president of Dominica 43 years ago to bring us to the reality in which we are right now. You have a responsibility, Dominica, to stand up against this. And I heard some comments recently suggesting, okay, there's nothing wrong with the call of the election because other people have done it. I hope, having listened to us this afternoon, you understand clearly that there's a big difference in all of the election calls that have gone on before. And the big one with this is the fact that it is coming as a deliberate strategy of the government of Roosevelt Skerrit to avoid an election with the proper electoral reforms that will allow the system to be free and to be fair. Listen.
The public service will not work.
The public service will not work.
The hospitals will not work.
The hospitals will not work.
Fire service will not work.
Fire service will not work.
The prison service will not work.
The prison service will not work.
The water department will not work.
The water department will not work.
The post offices, the ports, the administrative setup will not work.
The ports, the administrative services will not work.
The private sector unions will also keep their members out on strike.
Private sector unions keep their members out on strike.
We will be prepared to stay out for as long as it takes, because
we will be prepared to stay out for as long as it takes. 1979, shut the country down. That's what was being proposed and advocated at this time, and it didn't matter for how long the country was shut down.
We believe that the lives of the people of this country must be protected against the government, which will only link itself. I mean, we have to take the government in perspective. Government is dangerous to us and dangerous to the region as a whole.
The government is dangerous to us and dangerous to the region as a whole. And when you think of this practice of hijacking the people's electoral process and trying to entrench a situation where you and you alone will decide for the people who their government is, you cannot think of a more disrespectful and a more fundamental attack on the people's rights than that. And the people must respond. In 1979, the people responded. And how did they respond?
The constitutional rule of law prevailed because you had the interim president and so on. But I've always said that the constitutional removal of the government was aided and abetted by the Constitutional Cool Wash Brigade. Constitutional removal of the government was aided and abetted by the Constitutional Cool Wash Brigade. That the constitutional removal of the government was aided and abetted by the Constitutional Cool Wash Brigade.
The constitutional, let's hear it again. This is from the government's lead attorney talking with the president of Dominica, the time some years ago. Listen to this.
But I've always said that the constitutional removal of the government was aided and abetted by the Constitutional Cool Wash Brigade.
The constitutional removal of a government was aided and abetted by the Constitutional Cool Wash Brigade. Again, the constitutional removal of a government was aided and abetted by the Constitutional Cool Wash Brigade.
No, but I want us to go back there, because there must always be some logistics behind the constitutional application of the rule of law.
You understand now how the importance of the Constitutional Cool Wash Brigade. The very same man who advocated the use of the Constitutional Cool Wash Brigade in 1979 now sits in the office of president and will try to tell us that what he did was right by not objecting to Roosevelt Skerritt's application or request to him to have another general election in Dominica, to issue it for another general election without electoral reforms. We, the people of Dominica, have been taken for fools. We have been taken as the little children of Roosevelt Skerritt, aided and abetted by Charles Savarin, who knew everything that was right about governance and how you secure good governance in 1979, but seems to be totally and absolutely clueless now. And his example from back in 79 must inform us now as to how we go forward. And if we have any idea, if we take any lesson at all from that, one of these days this week, we will close down Dominica to demonstrate to Roosevelt Skerritt that this is not his country, that this belongs to us. So private sector people who, the unions back in the day, the private sector unions were prepared to keep the people out on strike. And the public service would not work under Charles Savarin as the union boss. So what happened to us 43 years later? We don't know how to close a country down to show a tyrannical prime minister that we are in disagreement with what he's doing, and that this election that he has called is offensive to us, it is disrespectful to us, it is not our election, and he's trying to use us while he masquerades an election before our eyes that is simply about him and his political party. We do not accept it. Shut the country down one of these days this week, and show the tyrant that the country does not belong to him. It doesn't get simpler than that.
We have a real battle for the soul of Dominica in our hands, and I think that is what we have to keep getting people to understand. This is not simply about an electoral reform. This is not simply about politics as usual. This is really a fight for the political, for the moral soul of Dominica, for the political soul of Dominica, for the democratic rights and democratic foundations of our country. This is really a fight to define who will we be as a nation. Will we continue to go down the path of being a rogue nation? Will we become a people who are governed by roguish behavior? Will we continue to give up our values and our ethical behavior and cooperation as a people to take our place as people of dignity at the table of nations? Or will we continue to become and devolve into a banana republic and have over our heads the specter of corruption and malgovernance and malfeasance and eroded democracy? Who do we want to be as we approach 50 years of independence? What is the next 50 years of independence going to be like? And this is a critical moment, a critical turning point, a tipping point to determine who we are as Dominicans and what Dominica will be as a nation. And that's what this fight is really about.
All right, it's 4:59. Gentlemen, I'm going to make my exit. Bosso will come here and take care of business. I have some other matters to tend to. But thank you very much, Dominica. God bless you all the time. We can do it all together. Johnson Boston, going forward. Thank you, Dominica. God bless.
We still need you on the front lines, of course.
We can see that the tables is prepared, and they see that we're no longer scared. We can see Obama's made the change, and now the whole world can say together now. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We can sing as one people. Oh yeah, oh yeah. We can do it all as one nation. We can sing as one people. One nation, yeah. See the children suffering, so much pain, and they still not recovering. Trying to get to the root of the problem and root out the right solution today. Listen to the words of the prophets. We're all kings and queens in the palace, yeah. So no more abuse, then we'll walk it. We can get it all together, say. We can sing as one people. We can do it as one nation. We can sing as one people. Oh yeah, hey, sing again. This is the generation that will change the game. This won't remain, no, things won't be the same.
Well, of course, we're continuing here this afternoon until 6 o'clock. We want to say special thank you to Lennox Linton, the Honorable Lennox Linton, Leader of the Opposition. You know, he's Leader of the Opposition until an election is called and a new parliament is appointed. So we thank him for being here early on and for the lessons that he have given to us Dominicans at home and abroad. So we are in a situation here in our country, and it is our responsibility as citizens to decide whether we continue to live with the wrongs and whether we continue to allow our hate for others individually or collectively, that we would use the state's resources and the state's, facilities to really destroy our beautiful country. Let's take this call. Call is on. Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, Bosso.
Yes.
Bosso, I would really like you to be the leader of the opposition, you know. Trust me, and you know who is speaking there. Because my reason of saying that, after a whole week at least you, boss, so as the leader of the opposition, you're supposed to write CARICOM, you're supposed to write Dennis Byron, you're supposed to do that already.
These things are being done. We told you these things are being done. We're not coming here and see all the things. There are things being done behind the scene, and we'll inform the country as we go along what the results are. So these things are being done. They're in progress. It's work in progress. So thank you very much. Hello, good evening. Hello, overseas line, good evening. Going one, going twice. Hello. Hello.
Hello?
Yes, go right ahead.
Yes. I'm sorry. I would like to ask you a question relating to something else.
Yes, go
Can
ahead.
you give me the website where I could go and make my donation?
Oh, I don't have it in my head.
I'm calling from the States.
Nick Cliff.
I think it's nickcliff.org.
Let's see.
You got
I
that?
cannot hear you. Can you repeat that?
It's Nick Cliff.
But let me see if I have it written down so I can spell it out to you correctly.
So it's nickcliff.org. But
and if you look at the, it was posted last night in the recording of the session the marathon session we had yesterday. It's posted in the feed there. But let me see if I can find something for you.
But she got it. She got it's Nick Cliff.
Yes, but I'm not sure she got the spelling correctly. It's kind of a little.
Can you give me the spelling again?
Yes. One second here. Let me see.
Hold on a while.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that. I know I'm showing you off.
No, it's okay. But if you want to give us a call offline, we can talk to you and provide that to you.
What number can I call? Give me a number.
You can call
Offline.
Call 469-586-9497. That's an overseas number, and we can coordinate it with you. 469
469
586-9497.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Sure. We appreciate you.
Yes. Okay, Bernard, we were saying that basically what we are about is to educate the Dominican people on what is happening, and sometimes some people lost the argument by saying that the Prime Minister has a right. No one has disputed that.
Right.
But we're saying you do not have the right to do mischief.
Or run roughshod over the population.
Yes, and
certainly you have the legal right, but not the right to do as you wish, as you please, even when it is doing damage to your society.
Yes. Let's take this call. Hello. Good afternoon.
Yes, Bosso.
Yes.
Good evening.
Yes, same to you. Good afternoon.
The website is nidclf.org. O-R-G.
Say it again. N-I.
It's NIDCLF.org.
Okay, we have that.
Yes, it's N as in Nancy, I as in Indiana, D as in Dominica, C as in Charlie, L as in Leaford, F as in Frank, .org.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's correct. That's
All
correct.
right, take care.
Thanks a lot. Yes.
We just located it.
Yes. So the caller who called a while ago and wanted the site is NIDCLF.org. .org. That means O-R-G.
.org. Yes.
Okay. So the caller who we told to call a private number.
But
I
hope she was able to get that. If not, I'll repeat it when she contacts this number.
Yes.
So.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Boston.
Yes, good afternoon.
And Mr. Ito.
Good afternoon.
I heard you, Mr. Boston, alluded to the fact, or is it a fact, that there were people registering officers who were not even in Dominica that night of the
Who were not doing what?
He's talking about
you said
Mhm.
that there were people who registering officers who were not in Dominica.
Yes.
Now, is that a fact? That's something that can be contested.
Well, these are all the things we are investigating, and work have been done on this thing. So we will
Well,
not,
yes, because
we'll not tell you everything on the radio.
Well, I understand
Mhm,
that. I
yes.
understand because that's the disenfranchising people.
Yes.
You know, nobody's there to take their names and whatever to put for them so that they can vote.
Yes,
So
you're
I
correct
guess-
in your
I guess-
observation. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Good morning.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Yes. Hello. Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon to you.
Good
and how are
afternoon,
you?
ma'am.
I'm fine. Good afternoon, Mr. Lincoln.
Well, he left a while ago. He has another assignment, so he left.
Okay, I'm going to address somebody by your name. Few people might call him so. Good
Yeah.
afternoon, Claudie.
Hey, good afternoon. That must be somebody that knows me from way back.
That's somebody who knows you very well.
Very well, very well, very well. That is my neighborhood and childhood name. So my middle name being Claude. So wonderful.
Baptist State, your family,
Ah, perfect. Wonderful.
but I'm calling from the state.
Oh, great, great.
Okay, I am just calling to encourage you guys, to give you a bit of strength from what I have and from God Almighty,
Mhm.
to continue the work that you are doing, and to ask you to trust in God because we are dealing with demonic powers. Some people may get vexed with me, but I know why I'm saying it. And I'm calling on Dominicans to get together.
That's right.
All the civic-minded groups, please come together. Put away all our differences and come together because we need numbers and we need unity. We need a lot of strength to fight this system. When you tell me a prime minister, well, they say a prime minister is putting candidates of parliamentary representatives, ministers on the side, and is gifting them with a brand new vehicle and asking them to be peaceful, be kind. And these grown men and women are accepting it lying down. Gentlemen, we are on a dangerous path and we need each other to fight it. So let's get together, let's stay together, and let God be the center of everything that we do. Thank you. Continue the good fight. God bless you guys.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate your courage, your support, and of course your advice.
Yes, and we just want to remind the listeners that and encourage them. We know we have lots of overseas listeners and supporters, and we continue, of course, the fundraising efforts that we began yesterday, and we want to encourage you to go out to, especially those overseas where you could use your debit cards and credit cards and so on, to go off to www.nidclf.org, nidclf.org,
Yes.
org, and donate to the cause of no reform, no election. You make all the difference.
And you don't have to put whatever you can. Whatever you can would be.
Yes, every bit helps.
Yes.
Every bit helps.
Thank you very much. Yes. Hello. Good afternoon. Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes. How are you?
I'm fine, and you, Motor?
Good. Good.
I'm fine. But we didn't get you this morning, eh? We didn't meet you this morning.
Oh, I came to mass at 10:30.
Okay, let me tell you now. This illegal prime minister, he is trying his best. He is trying to save his tail. He don't want to lose his tail like the Agouti.
Yes.
So he don't want to come out there.
Mhm.
And I
But
hope
the
that-
Agouti did eventually lose his tail, so that's a cautious tale to remember.
Therefore,
Okay then. Thank you.
he don't want to come out there because he don't want to lose his tail like the Agouti.
Yes.
And I hope that when we start, we're not doing that for a day or two.
Yes. Yes. Okay then. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Very good.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
And good afternoon to you.
Well, very nice. Cousin, I must call you a cousin because you all trying your best to save Dominica from the demonic forces that govern this country. If we remain silent, we'll be in trouble. The country is in the hands of satanical forces. Dominican, let's call God. Let us call God all time. God, never underestimate God's power. Keep your focus on God. You'll go be successful on our fight. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carlos. Thank you.
And I would say, Bernard, there are a number of persons praying for us, praying for the country,
Yes.
praying for the right things to happen,
Yes.
praying for deliverance. And among those persons are priests and pastors.
That's right.
We're praying, and nuns and sisters, and we're praying for our country.
All people of good conscience.
People of good
really.
conscience are
Conscience
praying
are praying for us.
because prayer is needed, it's necessary in this struggle. Let's take this call from the overseas line. Hello, good afternoon. Hello, going on. Good afternoon. No, this caller must have dropped out. Well, of course, we reach a point in our country's history. It's going to be first time that Dominica found the caller come back. Hello, good afternoon. Hello, yes, good afternoon.
Go ahead, caller. You're on.
Sometimes there's a delay on the overseas line, so.
Yes.
Hello, good afternoon. Off again. Hello, good afternoon. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, good afternoon.
We hear you loud and clear, ma'am. Go
Good
ahead.
afternoon, Mr. Bosso.
Yes, good afternoon to you.
Okay, I'm going to read a short prayer there for Dominica. Eh?
Go ahead. Go right ahead. Oh, she gone?
She may be unwrapping the prayer. Are you still on?
No, she went off by mistake.
She
will be coming back.
hung off by accident.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon to you. Go right ahead, caller.
Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
You're on air. Go ahead, sir.
How are you doing, sir?
We're doing fine. And you?
I'm good. This is really a good program, and it's a program to educate the people, because this is very, very important.
Thanks a lot.
And why it is so important is because our rights is being threatened as citizens of the country. And I am appealing to all God-fearing people, all those who call themselves Christians. You should never support or never find yourself condoning or helping anybody to populate what you call lawlessness. As a Christian, we cannot support lawlessness. We have to make sure that we reject lawlessness, and all believers should stand up and make sure that we go out there and we support and we begin to join ourselves together and say no reform, no election.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm calling on the people of God. I'm calling on the churches. I'm calling on the pastors. Anytime as a pastor or a church or a God-fearing person, you support lawlessness, this is a recipe for disaster in our nation.
Yes.
Well, absolutely. I mean, a country without laws is not really a country. I mean, the only way civilized people can live together is to agree on laws and to follow those laws and to have those laws be implemented and enforced. And that is part of the principle that we're fighting for. We're fighting for lawfulness. We're fighting for discipline. We're fighting for law-abiding citizens, disciplined citizens. So many of our citizens seem to have lost their way with the behavior modeled by this government. And we see accidents occurring on the road because people have less respect for each other now and behave more recklessly. And we see that reflected in the number of fatalities reported. We see crimes. We see outrageous crimes like being shot in your hospital bed occurring because people have less value for the sanctity of human life and respect for each other's and the ability to negotiate peacefully and to resolve conflict through dialogue. That has also been affected by what's been modeled by this government, that peaceful resolution is attack and demolish the opposition. And when you use that language, you model that language to people, that's the sort of negotiating style, the sort of dialogue that you engender between citizens. And that's that directly model, and all of those things we're fighting for at this tipping point to eradicate and to go on a new path.
Mhm. Yeah. Somebody sent me something there. Defend the defenseless. And it's Psalm 82, 3-4. There will be times when helping others means sacrifice.
Absolutely.
There will be times when helping others means sacrifice. The lines are lighting up. Let's take this call. Hello. Good afternoon. Hello, good afternoon. Hello, overseas line, good afternoon.
Yes, boss. So, and good evening to you, gentlemen.
Yes.
Boss, so a lot of people are calling for God, but God says He will help those who help themselves. You know what I'm saying? We got to help ourselves.
But we never leave him out, though. We never leave him out.
We must continue. You must continue giving out the either the phone number or the website, because most of us here in the diaspora, we cannot come down. Although most people in Dominica ask, why can't you all come down? Why can't you all come down? But we will share as much as we can with whatever we have to assist in the struggle.
Yes.
And we wish you guys will continue the struggle and don't give up, don't retreat.
Mhm.
We cannot let one man just dominating and all things are wrong in Dominica today. So we are asking you, don't retreat. And we here in the diaspora will assist as much as we can financially to continue with that struggle. And we are not going to retreat to this one man.
Yes.
Okay, also take care of yourself, good program, educate the people, and continue giving the website. And I know there's a lot of us out there who will definitely contribute to your cause.
Thank you very
Yes,
much.
It's a good reminder for us. I was actually about to give this off. So good segue, good laying out the table there. The website is www.nidclf.org, www.nidclf.org. And you go on there. The first thing you will encounter is a large donate button. You go in there and take care of business and join the fight. As you said, we can't all be there in person, but we can all be there in various forms, and it will take all those various forms for us to do battle. So we look forward to your donations.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Yes, good afternoon. Yes, go right
Yes,
ahead.
good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You're on air, man.
I cut off the phone by mistake.
Oh, sorry about that.
We were waiting. We knew you would get back to us, so we were waiting patiently for you.
Okay.
Yes.
Heavenly Father, I come to you now in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Heavenly Father, I bow down and worship before you. I come to you with praise and thanksgiving. I come to you in humility, in fear, in trembling and seek truth. I come to you in gratitude, in love, and for the precious blood of your Son, Jesus Christ. I ask of you, Heavenly Father, to bind any stronghold of the devil that are interfering with our relationship with you, Heavenly Father. I ask you, Heavenly Father, to keep any stronghold that will not allow us to come back into your life. And you, Lord, have delivered us from them. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you very much for this prayer. We need prayer. And of course, the caller called a while ago, he said, we call on God, yes, but we can't leave God out at all in what we're doing. He has to be part, he has to be the leader in what we're doing, he has to be the motivator in what we're doing, he has to be the protector in what we're doing, and he has to be the source of energy and courage in what we are doing. So
we fight on all fronts.
On all fronts.
If we need to engage in the spiritual, the religious aspects of it, and of organizational aspect, financial aspects, All of it is relevant, and the values and principles of our religious belief, of fairness, of justice, of equity, of respect, of decency, of seeking a better life, of creating a better world. All those are fundamental values that we embrace, whatever your religious preferences are. But these are foundational ideas that we all embrace, are important to our society, and so we bring those in. And folks have different ways of digesting that information, and we'll bring it in different ways, but whatever works. And these values are central to our society and as our Western societies.
Yes, and just to say, in terms of the contribution, those of you on island who would like to make a contribution and you're in Roseau, you can visit the office of Q95 FM Radio, and you can pay it there and say to the officers downstairs that you're contributing to the effort of the coalition, the No Reform, No Election coalition effort. Hello, good afternoon. Hello, good afternoon.
Yeah, hey, what's all you doing?
Doing fine, doing fine.
Yeah, Bernard, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah, nice to hear you.
You too.
Also, my concern, really, Bernard, I want to address that concern too, actually.
Mm-hmm.
What do you have to say, Bernard, to your colleagues, the other party leaders, like the leader of the APP and even the independent candidates that we hear going up about, some of them first time we're hearing their name anywhere in the country. What do you have to say to those people who have decided that they're going to take part in the election? Although listening to the APP leader, she outlined the situation that we are in terms of the snap election where Mr. Skerrit is abusing his power and so on. And she gave a nice background, but in the final analysis, a decision was not to take part. What do you have to say to those of your colleagues that would encourage them to take the right position they're taking, not to take part in the election? Thanks a lot for the opportunity, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Yes.
And it's a very good question and a very important question. And I think it goes to the heart of all what we're trying to do, and it goes to the heart of our strategy. It goes to the heart of our activities and what we do. What I would say to my colleagues in the other political parties and those who are considering what direction they should move is to consider the realities. We have to be very hard-nosed in political affairs, and we have to look at the realities on the ground. It is not possible, in my opinion, or very unlikely that the independent candidates can be successful in this election. To do so would require a mathematical fit that is simply not a solution that can be solved. You would need to generate the number of votes, the equivalent number of votes that you would lose from the major political parties who have decided not to participate, because one would think and one would know that it is unlikely that the major political party supporters would in fact vote for independent candidates who would be viewed as breaking rank, who would be viewed as not standing tall on the principle. And so the independent candidates, the smaller parties, must be aware of the mathematical equations at work here. It would simply not be mathematically possible to outdo the Labour Party, who we know runs strong in most of the constituencies. Even those they lose, they are not very far behind. And so it would be just hard-nosed politics. We need to look at this and say to our colleagues and ourselves, well, what is possible? It may very well not be possible to score those sort of electoral victories, but there are victories to be won. We need to score the victory of showing that this government is an illegitimate government. How do we do this? By showing that we are willing to walk away cleanly and fully away from these elections and say to the Dominican public, this government is legitimate. This government has abused its power for the last time, and we are willing to stand on principle and walk away from the process. We will no longer validate these elections. We will no longer normalize this behavior. And we are winning that moral victory. We are winning that psychological victory. We are changing the psychological mood of our country to one where we, as one of the callers said earlier, we make our constitution become a living document. We embody it in our heart, in our emotions, in our actions. And that is the sort of moral victory and the moral fire, the emotional fire that we need to tip this thing so we force new elections here in the next two years or so, that we say we will not participate in this sham elections and put pressure and mobilize so that in 2 years or less, we bring this government to fresh elections on a freshly laid out table with electoral reform in place. And that is the victory that we need to win. And so that's what I said in every meeting I attend to my colleagues. That's what I say to the public. We may not win the electoral victory, but there are victories to be won, and those are what we must focus on and win them. And win them in large numbers, and a moral victory and mobilizing numbers to show that we are peacefully winning the hearts and minds of Dominicans.
And remember, Mr. Skerritt, when he announced the date for election, he did not say, I'm announcing for a snap election because the economy is bad, I can't manage it. So therefore, I'm asking you for a new mandate to give me some fresh, energy. He did not say that we have a crisis, and based on the crisis, in the new mandate, so he could reassure his support and confidence of the electorate, the Dominican people. He did not say that. He said, is to give the Labour Party a fresh start and a fresh look. So obviously, by saying that, without the reform that was promised to the people after the 2019 general election, and even repeated and again further promise and give almost like a report to the nation as to where we were with electoral reform. And 3 days after, he called a snap election 2.5 years before it is constitutionally due. What he will do then is to use the opportunity of the reform in process, calling the election to again rig the election in their favor. So it really does not make it better for you, whether you are independent or whether you are a party to contest, because Mr. Skerritt clearly said he was dissolving Parliament to call an election to give the Labour Party a fresh look
start,
and a new start.
Yes.
So that is their election and so forth.
Absolutely. As you said, it was not about the country. It's about his party.
His party, yes.
Now we have someone on the line.
So, hello, good afternoon. Hello. Yeah, the person get out.
Yeah,
Okay.
but that's a critical point, Mr. Boston. That's a critical point in terms of his message was convoluted. I had them following exactly what he was talking about, the fresh start. He went in all different directions. There was no coherent message there. I was trying to find an intelligent strategy and something strategic and comprehensive and cohesive, but there really was nothing there. It was just a bunch of words thrown together to give the appearance of something strategic, but in reality it was not. You had to read between the lines and disassemble the nonsense and see that he was simply saying, hey, I want to be large and in charge, and I am reassembling the team and disassembling the team so that I reign supreme, and I want to have a fresh slate of candidates that I can control more fully and more completely.
And then
that was all there is to it. All of the strategic reset thing was just complete nonsense.
Nonsense, yes. Somebody sent me something saying, good evening, great discourse, trying to call, but with no luck. In recent days, I have been encouraged by the united front exhibited among opposing parties and various organizations to operate as a collective body to take on this monster, to bring about meaningful change to our country, Dominica. Thank you, that person, for that message. So we get a lot of messages there.
Yes, and we appreciate that message and that support from that texter, I guess.
Yes, and so forth. So in that sense, as you rightly said, and because a friend of mine called me and said to me, but why would a government, a prime minister, dissolve parliament to give his party a new look? Because a new look starts from the top. In other words, if the guys who are candidates and ministers are not new looks and fresh starts, it usually starts with the head of the party. The prime minister will step aside, and a new person will be elected as leader and prime minister.
They often fall on the sword and say, we have failed. I take the responsibility. I fall on the sword.
The buck stops somewhere.
Yeah.
And then now that new person then would organize themselves and their party going forward. The other thing too is, if you have a situation where a minister is not performing in a particular ministry he has been occupying for the last 3 years, you can have what they call a cabinet reshuffle.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the simplest thing to do. But to call a national election when the electoral commission and the electoral office is not ready for the election, and to say you're calling the election because you want to give your party a new look and a new start, and then you're on platform now saying that you caught the opposition not only with their pants down, but with their pants and underpants removed.
Yes.
That is what you're celebrating. You're celebrating two things now. You're giving your party a fresh start, a new look, and you caught the opposition with their pants and underpants off.
Right.
And you feel that is something in 2022 that you must go around campaigning with. Let me take this call. Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, gentlemen. Good afternoon.
Yeah, same to you.
Good day. You know, I am listening to the discourse for the entire week since the announcement of the SNAP poll that is about to happen in Dominica.
Yes.
And I'm thinking about the OECS leaders in particular. I mean, Mia Motley, I know she's not OECS, but Ralph Gonzalez. I remember some time ago, Ralph Gonzalez was in a similar situation and he disagreed with an election result and it was mayhem in St. Vincent.
Yes, yes,
so I'm
you're right.
wondering whether these leaders, what are they thinking of what is taking place in Dominica right now? Because they are supposed to be champions of democracy. I'm thinking of, in particular, Mia Motley and Ralph Gonzalez.
Yes.
Have a great evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And the caller is right, because there was the new national party in St. Vincent under Sir James Mitchell. I think that was the fourth or so election. They had won the majority of seats in the parliament, but Ralph Gonzalez Unity Labour Party had gotten the popular votes.
Correct.
And because our system caters for the majority of seats,
Right.
okay, in places like Guyana is different. And Ralph Gonzalez decided he would not accept the result because he said the James Mitchell government did not have the authority of the majority of the votes in St. Vincent to have governed St. Vincent.
He challenged the legitimacy of the government. Yes.
And he challenged it, although the government was not wrong, because the government won.
I mean, the system is what it is.
What it is, and so forth. And he pressed on until CARICOM mounted a delegation and went to St. Vincent and had the matter resolved. Right. And an early poll was called, and then they came into government, and then government up to now.
Right.
Now, when Dr. Kenny Anthony in St. Lucia was in government, when Denzel Douglas in St. Kitts was in government, and so these guys were, if you have a demonstration, you have a protest, heavy armed police would come out. When they get into opposition now, and there were matters they did not like of the government, they brought out people.
Right.
They brought out, so bringing out people is not a crime, it's not a problem. Bringing out people is to demonstrate that, because we're in a society, the role of the president is to be non-partisan so you can unite the two sides. So you can come at the top. If there is a confusion between the Labour Party and the UWP or the Freedom Party, the role of the president is to bring the leaders together and discuss it and see how we could diffuse the situation. That's the role of a president in a democracy. Right?
That's right. That's right.
So here, because at the end of the day, you may be a Labourite, I may be a Freedomite, and Lennox is a UWPite. But at the end of the day, we are citizens.
And we're governed by laws and rules and the Constitution.
By laws.
That allows us to coexist peacefully.
And
that's what's important.
Now, I know in a campaign, we would disagree in the debate, in the discuss as to whether my party is better than your party, whether we have better policies and our philosophy can engender a space of growth and development for the well-being of the people. We discuss that. And then the people listen to all the sides without being bribed, without being treated, lied to, and so forth, and listen to the various groups. And they go at election, then they vote. And at the end of the day, the one that win, celebrate, they accept, victory, and the one that lost, concede. Right. And I have seen in my own self, in the Maho constituency, for example, we have seen people who campaign for the Labour Party, and even when the UWP came in the first time, campaign, and when Sir Brian Allen won the seat, you saw these people at his home with us celebrating.
Yes, that's what a mature democracy is.
So we put the campaign behind us, and we focus on the development of our country and its people. And so, but since
sadly we have lost that. You've lost that.
And if we do nothing, I mean, we will just don't have anything.
Well, we won't. We've lost it. It's drifting towards the horizon. We can still swim and get it. But if we don't do something now, then it's going to be over the horizon and we will have lost it forever. Because we are at a tipping point in our country for the moral and political soul of who we are going to be as a people. We must do this thing now. This is a tipping point. This is a pivotal moment. This is the time. This is the time we must all get together and do this thing. And what people are seeing with us united together as a coalition of opposing forces, the people have asked and demanded that we do this because it is the right thing to do, and it's the right thing. We ourselves realize that this is the greatest objective at the moment.
Yes. Hello, good afternoon. Over this line.
Hello, good afternoon, gentlemen. How are you doing?
Same to you, thank you.
Good.
Yeah, I want to commend you all in reference to the coming together of the various parties. It's really giving Dominicans living in the diaspora as well as Dominicans living in Dominica hope. One of the things I wanted to get your comments on is something I saw when our Prime Minister, I think it was December the 6th, where he announced fresh elections, and then subsequent to that, he had a launching of his party, new candidates. And what I found strange, I don't know if many people saw that, but that was not commented on. I saw my disbelief. The Speaker of the House of Assembly, an office that should be impartial, decked in red, right? Decked in red on the Labour Party's platform.
Yes.
I mean, this is unprecedented in my view. This is a gentleman who was once a member of the United Workers' Party, and he resigned, and he said he's basically supporting the Labour Party, and he was selected to be the Speaker of the House. I want to hear your comments on that, because if a gentleman like that could be decked in red on the government's platform while he's Speaker of the House, what does that say about impartiality in the Parliament? What does that say about really consensus view, objectivity in Parliament if we have that kind of abuse of power in our democracy? Is there any hope? That's what I wanted to hear comment from you all in reference to the Speaker of the House of Assembly decked in red in a partisan way, celebrating with one side of the member of Parliament. Thank you for the opportunity, gentlemen.
Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome. Yes.
In fact, you are correct. I mean, we as humans, as people, you may have your rights as to, and during an election, who you vote for, you go to the poll and vote for. That doesn't make you a beast.
Right.
And cannot conduct yourself in a professional or responsible manner.
Right.
That particularly if you are in a position of state and in positions but like president and speaker, the speaker is in line next to the president. If something happens to the president today or tomorrow,
That's
the
right.
speaker is the person who will be called upon to occupy the seat of president
Right.
until an election takes place. So that person has to have some high moral
Yes.
in their own behavior and utterances.
And respect for the office.
Respect for the office. And when you behave in such a way now, what you do, you are so partisanly clothed in one side over the other, it makes it difficult for you to have a civilized conversation with the opposition.
Yes.
Because they are in parliament, they are members of parliament, and you are the chairman of the parliament, and therefore you must get the confidence and respect of both sides. Off and on, there'll be some disagreement. That's humanity and so on.
Sure.
Disagreement. But when you behave that way, you are doing house to house with the Labour Party.
Yes.
You are doing public, political activities with the Labour Party.
Yes. On political platforms, giving speeches and so forth.
Then how do you come to the parliament now and be impartial?
Yes. How do you make that flip? How do you convince
you know-
anybody? And that is not a joke. That how do you convince members of parliament to have confidence you can be impartial? It's a joke. You really have to. I think it goes to a political maturity in Dominica, where people do not have reverence and hold sacred certain features of our institutions. As the Speaker of Parliament, of the House, you need to simply recognize you have a higher duty now.
Yes.
You have a more sacred duty now. You have a more somber role to play now. You shouldn't be rolling in the mud of the politicking. But it's the lack of that awareness, the lack of that maturity that affects us so deeply in our institutional maturity and our political maturity as a nation.
Yeah, because what I saw recently in Grenada, following the election of the government that came in June of this year, they were in parliament and they brought in a person outside of parliament to be the speaker outside of parliament.
Right.
And that person occupying the seat, then they had to elect a deputy. And they elected a member of the opposition as the deputy speaker of the House.
Yes.
And then the new speaker then came in and, he addressed both sides and congratulated them, on winning their seats and being part of the parliament and wished them well. And he gave every member, particularly the new members, an opportunity to say something to the country as a new member of parliament on both sides.
Right.
And they did that. When he finished doing that, some of the older heads who were there before, because remember the government came in all new because they had nobody before.
That's right.
The opposition had the one they made deputy speaker, Dr. Samir Duman and him now, and Dr. Keith Mitchell, who's leader of the opposition. Then someone raised to say something. And then he allowed the person on the opposition side, and the person's comment was to establish that they, as a former government, contributed to the development of Grenada, and they're encouraging this government to take from where they end with more vigor and energy because a new team to make it better
and move it forward
and to wish them well. And I think that was so civilized.
Civilized and mature.
And mature.
Political maturity.
And maturity and so forth.
And that matters. People think this is semantics of a political theater, but these symbolic things matter. They're the symbolic things that tell us how to conduct ourselves and signal to our population how we conduct ourselves, what respectability we have for our systems of government and for each other. And these are very, very important things, not simply theater.
Yes, what I saw recently in the British Parliament, there was a debate and the speaker there was a member of the government. Government side was a speaker. Because you can appoint the speaker either in or out of the parliament, of the elected members.
Yes.
And the speaker was being ordered, and there was the minister, I think the minister, probably the Secretary of Health or whatever it is. And he said order, and then he gave him a little warning and so on. And he said, but you're behaving, when the guy challenged him, he said, but you're behaving like you're outside of the parliament. You're in the parliament.
Right. Have some decorum.
And you have to have some decorum and so forth. And therefore, if you are not able to put some order in yourself, how are you able to bring order to the constituency you represent?
That's right.
And he is a member of the Conservative Party,
right?
Saying that to a member of the Conservative Party who's a minister.
Yes.
So
That's accountability.
Accountability,
Yes.
and knowing where you are, what you're responsible for, what your role should be, and how you set the pace and the examples for the future generation. So young people can learn, they can see where we can agree to disagree, and so forth.
You have to model negotiation skills. You have to model how we dialogue with each other, how we come to agreement. And at the highest level of government and the most visible level of government, these are very, very important tasks that is performed beyond the administrative things, beyond the strategic things and policy things that we do. Modeling correct social behavior is very important to our development.
And so forth. But what we see there is these guys, they feel they have a right to be dishonest.
There's an arrogance and hubris. They have gotten away with it so long.
Yes.
They think they can do anything they wish and trample upon us in any manner that they wish. But that will not last.
A right to disrespect others, a right to belittle you, and so forth. And the thing about that, when they get into a real debate, they run away.
Because there's no substance
There's
there.
no substance there.
Because they spend all the time not on developing their human capital or the abilities to deliver on those things. They spend all the time on the belittling and all the times on the maping, and this is where they develop the skill set. But that's not the skill set that develops the country.
For example, the Prime Minister in 2019 gave a new team. He said the new team is to give the Labour Party future looks and all this thing. They ran some of them. I remember, I'll call his name, I'll call his name. The former parrot for the Kalinago constituency. He told Kent and I that, he only knew he was not a candidate when he went to a rally.
Right.
They call a convention, a delegates convention. The Prime Minister decided, no, we'll have in a rally. Because he didn't want to go to a delegates conference to have election of leaders and so forth and to select. He went to a rally. And he said he came prepared with his team there, his supporters. Then while he was standing there, he had the Prime Minister announcing
another candidate.
Yes.
How disrespectful.
And he said he felt so disrespected and small and so forth. And he was trying to get the others like Peter St. Jean and even the one in Pilit-Savan, Dr. Daru. Dr. Daru there, get them together so they could to make a statement together. And he was working on them. They didn't want to come forward on his own too early because he wanted to get them in.
Right.
And lo and behold, we saw him on platform launching the other guy. So this Prime Minister has a spell on these fellas. Right. Now let's look at Portsmouth. Ian is not sick. He is not old for that. He has a safe constituency and he's been removed.
Right.
And then and the other thing too, the Prime Minister didn't even allow the people of Portsmouth to end the Douglas legacy. He ended himself.
Yes.
Rosie brought him in.
How disrespectful is that?
Rosie brought him in, and then he didn't allow the Portsmouth people to decide, something, we had enough of the Douglases. Right. He himself ended it, and Ian on platform saying he's a genius.
Yes.
Can you imagine
the
what?
irony.
Yes. Can you imagine what country we live in? I understood. Mrs. Bonnie was the first name. I don't remember the first name now, but I had to ask, can you please allow me to make another 3 years so I can be qualified for my pension? So, it's about them,
right?
And not about us.
Right, exactly. Not about the best interest of the country or the most strategic thing to do for the country. It's just simply what works best for those who are trying to make a living of the country, for quite frankly.
So she got a broke because they had some Austell guy lined up to run. And she had to say, allow me to make at least another 3-4 years so I can qualify for a pension. So her heart is not in it for the people of Carstable or Dominica, but for pension. And this is the same person who told young people, as a Minister of Education, shake your pampala, right?
Yes.
That's the kind of qualities we have in
Right.
government.
Right.
And then you had the one from Roseau South, had to shout because they had some lander guy lined up.
Yes.
And she had to shout, if it's not her, no vote.
No vote.
She herself said no vote.
Or give me $1 million.
She herself said no vote. So if she could say no vote as a labor right,
Right.
and she only take about her vote because they brought her in as a favor.
Right.
Why can't we now say no reform, no election?
No vote.
And stand by that. No vote.
No vote.
And so forth.
Absolutely. And our moral case is so much broader than hers.
Than hers.
It's not even comparable. I mean, what we're fighting again, as I've said over and over again, is the moral heart and soul of Dominica, the direction, which the definition of Dominica for the next 50 years. How and will we define Dominica? How will we define our country? How will we construct a country? Where will we be? Where will we take our place at the table of nationhood? And when we sit at the table of nations, where will we be? Will we be in the rogues' corner, or will we be in the heroes' corner for having transformed a small developing country into a shining example for the world to see? And that is what we're fighting for.
And we have potential. I mean,
abundant potential.
Dominica is a little more difficult to develop from many other parts of the region. Like, for example, the cost of a road here can build how many roads in Barbados? Okay, it's flat. But if we use our resources, both in terms of material and finance and human,
yes,
we'll be much better off, because the number of things we were doing here, other countries came here to understudy it and implemented it.
Yes.
Our local government system,
yes,
our primary health care services.
Because
came here.
Things are more difficult for us here. We learn more.
Yeah.
We have to be innovative and creative to make it work. And so others have to emulate that.
Look at
we are a training lab for solving difficult problems.
Look for example, you bring Cuban nurses here, and they're trained for only one thing. Our nurses are general.
Yes, right. That's right.
Our general, you know, and so forth. So we have the capability and the human capital and talent to make our country a better place. What Scary did, he feels better to wreck an economy, to kill agriculture, to give tourism very little lip service, and so forth. So people who are in their farm doing well now have to come and look for a handout.
Yes.
People who in their little touristing thriving now have to look for a handout.
Right.
So he feel happier that you can come to him for a handout rather than you can work for yourself, earn your money, and be independent.
Right.
How long can you work with that?
Almost cast the eyes upon the great leader.
Yes. How long can you
Almost
live
cast the
that?
eyes upon the great leader or perish. And this is the society that he's crafted over the past 20 years.
Yes. Hello. Good afternoon. Hello. Yes. Good afternoon. The overseas line normally has a delay, but hello, nobody's there. So that is the kind of country we've had, as you rightly said, for the last 20 or so years under this administration and so forth. And rather than going forward, we said when you're doing the CBI, do it well. Let it be transparent. Checks and balances in place to ensure we have a good program. So that will be like icing on our cake.
Yes.
But we continue with our agriculture, with our tourism, with our services, with our build the capacity of the manufacturing sector and all of that.
Right.
Give the private sector the kind of support it requires to expand so our jobs can be created, people can work. Now, I mean, what you see a number of young persons on the side of the road looking for something to do. I see some of them occupying now, putting flags and putting posters and so forth.
Right.
And making a whole mess of things like it's as if, well, it's just a kind of
macaquerie.
Yes, it's a kind of satanic thing around the place.
In fact, many people said, "Hey, I've watched people walk past." I heard a guy saying, as he walked past the red flag, "Hey, what satanic business is this?"
That, you know?
But that's the thing. The Labour Party. I mean, listen, as you said, Mr. Boston, we have so much potential. If we could get the right leaders in place to transform our country, we have so much potential, so much human potential, so much beauty, so much aesthetic potential. We simply need the right team in place who can build people, who can build effective teams to do authentic development, not this sort of smoke and mirrors, Wizard of Oz development. And when you look behind the curtain, there's nothing there.
Nothing there, yes, that's right. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Nadine.
Yes.
Also,
Yeah, good afternoon.
good afternoon, Mr. Eaton.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yeah. I wonder how this lady Carissa Etienne feels when she see the primary health care she developed some years ago in hospital has disappeared, and hospital is in that state it is there, except a big building. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Rightly said.
Rightly said. I mean, it goes to how much as you were saying, Mr. Boston, how everything has been gutted.
Yes.
The insides has been scooped out, you know,
Yes,
out
yes.
of our health system, our agricultural system, and so forth.
Yes,
There's no
let's-
insides there anymore, only
let-
skin left.
Let's take this call. Hello, overseas line. Good afternoon.
Yeah, Boston. Sorry for calling back. I know people might be listening. I've been trying to get in touch with either Randy Prosper, Steve Benjamin, and Wesley. We have a contingent of buses that diasporans are willing to sponsor for that village, and I've been trying to get in touch with one of the brothers so we can get an idea of how many people they really think they can provide down there.
I hope
to make that happen.
I hope he is listening and he can hear.
Yeah, so
what
I
you're
just want them to
Yes.
to touch base so we can. It doesn't make sense catering buses to a village if you don't have that many people. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
sure. Yes, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I hope they're listening. Anybody pass that message, Steve or Prosper, one of these guys. So.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, the time is
All right.
5:59, so we have one more. In fact, we just hit on the 6 o'clock now. So
Yeah,
as I was saying that
I guess we'll wrap up. We would have stayed more, but we have other
we
commitments.
have other commitments. And
Yes.
so I just want to remind our listeners.
Oh,
and
we should give out the website one more time.
One more time. And
Yes,
while
yes.
while you're looking for it there, let me just remind us all over the country, the region, and the world, that on Thursday, the 17th of November, we're having this mass meeting on the Bayfront, starting at 3 p.m. So we're asking you to come out. We're asking you to wear your white t-shirt. If you have a white t-shirt, wear your white t-shirt. But if it doesn't have a white t-shirt and you have a white shirt, put it. If it doesn't have a white shirt, whatever shirt you put, come with it. Don't put any party color shirts. Just come with the normal colors and so forth. And come out in your large numbers. Those of you who have your vehicles and you're coming, give somebody a ride. Invite your neighbor out and let's come out to show. And that's the best we can do for our country, to come out in our numbers, to avoid any confrontation in this country, to come out with our numbers to show that numbers can count, that we do not want violence, we do not want confrontation. We have been provoked by the Prime Minister for many years, but now it have come to rock bottom. So to avoid any problem in this country beyond asking the Prime Minister to do the right thing and to ensure that the electoral reform work come to a conclusion so we can have election in our country on a level playing field so we can have a new dispensation of our governance in this country. We're asking you the best way we can get these things resolved is for a lot of us to come out in our numbers. We're asking the private sector and civil society, the churches, the unions, do not feel it is a struggle for just a few of us in the parties and the smaller civic groups. It's a struggle for the nation. And whether you are Labourite or whether you lean to Labour or whoever you lean to is immaterial at this time. What is important is for us to say, when a wrong is committed, we must advise who we love that that wrong should not be done, and come out that they can see us in our forces to understand that we may support Labour, we may support whoever we support, but the thing is we do not support wrong things. And we come out in our large numbers on the 17th of November. Let Tony Astafan go on other radios and rumble and get upset and ready to tuffy there. That is his issue. Because they have been deceiving, they have been lying, they have been tricking in their own interest, the people of Dominica. And we have said this thing must come to an end at some point. We cannot just continue to move into the motion as if, well, we're just robots in our country moving and say, thank you, and
Dancing
that's
to
all.
the tune of
Yes.
PM.
So let's take this call there because it's free pass, and then we're going to wrap up. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Boston. Good afternoon, Mr. Ito.
Yes.
I just
Afternoon.
heard something about Thursday, I think.
Yes,
whatever.
yes.
At what time?
3 p.m.
3 p.m.
3 p.m.
On where?
On the Bayfront.
On the Bayfront.
On the Bayfront.
Dame Eugenia Charles Boulevard.
Okay.
Yes, we'll be looking forward to seeing you there.
And many
I'll
others.
be there.
Sure.
Yes,
And many others.
and bring as many friends as you can.
And we are saying to Dominicans, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. The Prime Minister has no strength has no strength. He's still prime minister until election is called and a replacement is done, yes. But do not be afraid, because the prime minister cannot do us harm and believe he could rely on our children and our cousins, our nephews and nieces as police officers to defend him and his behavior. Because do not put us in harm's way. Do not do that to us as a country and as a people. And we are appealing to the consciousness, the Christian consciousness of our country to say, let us this thing, and this foolishness about he has his right. You can have right, yes, right is fine, but you must not be foolish about right.
Right. Do not use your right to trample upon others.
You have a right to walk on the road, but do you have a right to kick a person walking on the road?
Exactly.
You know, and things like that. So yes, you have right, but do not use your right and abuse your powers and authority to do unpleasant things. I see in a post that they have stability. Stability is not about your supporters alone, you know. Stability is about the nation.
Society.
And if you put those who don't support you against those who support you, you yourself are creating instability.
Yes. So I know we have to run. So let me give you the address one more time. The website address. It's www.nidclf.org. www.nidclf.org. And I look forward to we all look forward, this coalition movement, to your donations as you add your financial support to the movement, to the rally, to the fight. And so as we wrap up, you know, as you said, Mr. Boston, this is a time about I was so encouraged when I saw the folks coming up with donations to the office directly. And as you pointed out to me, he said, there's some people dancing and prancing, you know, because we realize that the hour is at hand, you know. It is a critical time. There is a certain joy in all of us, a certain joy, and we want to convey that to our supporters. This is a time to be joyous, because I am telling you, the time is at hand that this government is going to be removed. Finally, after 20-something plus years, the time is at hand when we're going to bring moral persuasion, where we're going to mobilize our people in numbers to say, we have to remove you. We're going to win the conversations in every constituency and convince our fellow citizens that we need change, that the biggest obstacle to our further progress at this point is Roosevelt-Skerrit and the Labour Party government. And that is the biggest obstacle to our development. Do we want to move forward or not? Again, this is the time when we're defining who Dominica is going to be, what Dominica is going to be, what our children are going to inherit. And Thursday on the Bayfront, we start that move, that joyous move. There'll be a lot more dancing and prancing as we move forward to get our country back on the path that we need to do to realize that glorious future we always knew is possible.
We sympathize with our brothers and sisters in the East and the Southeast.
For sure.
Because we know they have gone through quite a lot. No drinking water, electricity was cut off. I know even Kent, for example, Kent had no electricity for a long time. His own road was blocked to his home because he lived just in the outskirts of Castle Bruce. Right. The main road was blocked and so forth. So he had some difficulties there. We know that. But we're saying to you, all over Dominica, that in your own community, mobilize yourselves, bring yourselves together. You can have your own block meetings there. We'll come and address you there. And I heard Tony somebody to me was saying on radio, we had to rather go on campaign for the election. We are on radio asking people to donate. We are not ashamed to do that.
Of course not. That is true democracy.
And that is
grassroots movement.
Grassroots movement. And what we're doing is we and the people under us. That's the movement.
And
there.
We are the people.
Is not abuse the people for us, for ourselves, and so forth. So organize yourself in your community. We need volunteers. You can take your cardboards and you can write your slogan there on it. No reform, no election, and hold it up. Don't put it in anybody's face, but hold it up. Let everybody see. Don't put it in anybody's face, but hold it up. Because the message must go loud and clear. We want the region and the world over to face Dominica now. Put your eyes on Dominica.
That's right.
Because we did not create the problem.
We're just fixing the problem.
We're fixing the problem.
That's
the problem was created by Mr. Skerrit, And I think Tony Astafan, who is a senior counsel officer of the court, will dance around the issue and bring lies. When the reporter asked him some question about the Serbian work, he never answered. Answer the truth, my brother.
That's right.
Answer the truth and stop talking rubbish on radio and try to belittle a lot of people. And that is what we are calling Dominica to do, for us to release ourselves. We're going to have, we have a few callers in. I think probably they may be donating something. So let me take them before we end. Hello, good afternoon. Hello, good afternoon. Be brief.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, can you be brief, please? Because we always.
Good afternoon. My name is Boots on the Ground.
Boots on the Ground. How are you, Boots on the Ground?
I'm not too bad, thank you.
Good.
And I know that the program is over, getting to the end, but I just wanted to put in a little piece in the whole
quickly, yes.
info.
Briefly, yes.
Some time back, I called the radio
Mhm.
and I asked the Minister of Security, who was Rayburn Blackmore, to take a step forward and caution the Prime Minister that he, Rayburn Blackmore, is the man with the authority to speak on the security level of Dominicans. That was during the time we had the matter with Kedisha and Kian in Warner.
Yes.
Some people take this as wrong advice to call Raymond Blackmore. But Raymond Blackmore is one of the politicians of the Labour Party government that understand that the opposition leader had the right and the understanding to make corrections to the understanding of the politics, including they had that discussion in Parliament. And when Mr. Linton corrected Raymond Blackmore, the rest of Parliament on the Labour side was vexed because Blackmore stand like a man and he took the correction and corrected Parliament.
It's a good, yes.
Now, in this case, the Prime Minister is so disrespectful.
Yes, remember,
and so
very short on
scared
time
of
for
Rayburn Blackmore that he chose Rayburn to be one of the early guys to tell, I am giving you a package to go out.
Yeah.
I would like to know now who is in charge of security, and if Rayburn Blackmore have balls as a man, you need to stand up with the people and say that we need peace and justice in this situation where we are there now.
Thank you
We
very much.
appreciate the call. Yes,
Thank
we're
you.
out of time.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, bye-bye.
Yeah.
No problem.
The thing is, the lines are lighting up, but we only had up to 6, and we can't take more calls. We apologize.
Right.
But we're going to be here
But
every.
you're going to be back here,
every
so
Sunday.
you will get a chance.
Every
No
Sunday
worries.
from 3 to 6 for the next couple of Sundays. We'll be here. So we thank you for listening. We thank you for calling. We thank you for your pledge. In fact, some people at Mass this morning who pledged came to me and give it. Some persons who called and said they were going to send things via the various mediums have called and said it is done. So people are putting where what you call, yes, they're putting where the money where their mouth is. So thank you, Bernard. And he has to leave. He has to run to another function. And earlier on, Mr. Lennox Linton, the leader of the opposition, left because he too had to go to a function. So, you know, we are busy people. It's from one to the other. I'm from Mass this morning to here this afternoon. Then even when you're home for a few hours, you're on the telephone, you're on the computer, and calls after calls. There are those who call you and you miss the call, you have to call them back because people are showing their keen interest in what is going on. They're happy that the political parties and the few civic groups are together, but we want to expand it because we don't want it to be just a matter for a small group. We want it to be a matter for Dominica. And the point is, we need the advice, we need the guidance, we need the input of the larger civil society organization, the private sector, the churches, the unions, the National Youth Council, because everybody will have a say, should have a say, and therefore, whoever you support, take up that cloak, whoever you support, take up that cloak and put a Dominica cloak, and let us see as to what can happen if we do not handle this thing properly. So again, thank you very much. I want to thank Bernard, who just left, for his being here with us. and for the leader of the opposition, Honorable Lennox Linton, who actually started the program this afternoon and really doing a fantastic job and left for another function. God bless you. God bless Dominica. God bless people all over the world. We want to say thank you in a special way to Mr. G, that's Sheridan Gregoire, and Q95 FM Radio for the effort and the opportunity for us to educate the people on the issues confronting the people. And mark you, first time in our history, we have found ourselves in that kind of situation, and we have to find ourselves one way or the other to get out of it. Thank you. God bless you. Have a good rest of the day and a good night rest. Thank you.
Sing as one people, yeah. Oh, yeah. We can do it as one nation. Oh, yeah. We can sing as one people. Oh, yeah. We can shape a future that is fair and free, fighting down all levels of hypocrisy. As it is with you, so it should be with me. One unity together now. We can see that the tables is prepared, and they see that we're no longer scared. We can see Obama's made the change, and now the whole world can say together now. Oh yeah, yeah. We can sing as one people. Oh yeah, oh yeah. We can do it all as one nation. Yeah. We can sing as one people. Yeah. One nation, yeah. See the children suffering, so much pain and they still not recovering. Trying to get to the root of the problem and root out the right solution. Today, listen to the words of the prophets. We're all kings and queens in the palace, yeah. So no more abuse, then we whop it. We can get it all together, say, yeah. We can sing as one people. Oh, yeah. We can do it as one nation. We can sing as one people. Oh, yeah. Hey, sing again. This is the generation that will change the game. This won't remain, no, things won't be the same. As the day turns to night and the dark to light, we'll work to make it right. I'll say again, this is the generation that will change the game. This won't remain, no, things won't be the same. As the day turns to dark and the night to light, we'll work to make it right.